Chapter 728 The Fused Shenwu World. Baihua Palace. Xie Daoling sat on her throne of 10,000 flowers. She could no longer comfortably lean on the throne like before. Instead, she had to lean a bit closer to the back of a junior in order to be more reliable. Her feet had also left the ground and were hovering in the air. Her legs couldn't help but sway a bit, and sway a bit more. A young girl's voice rang out in the empty hall. It's so awkward. Carefully thinking about what happened just now, Xie Daoling felt both helpless and cautious. After thinking about what happened just now, she decided to rely on her instincts and seriously consider Yinji's suggestion. "Don't go out," Xie Daoling muttered. She put the doll down next to her and took out a tortoise shell. The 6 arts of cultivation, divination, formation, smithing, pill refining, talisman, and cooking. Among them, divination can be used to predict good or bad fortune and peek into the heavens' will, the most profound of them all. But Xie Daoling was already proficient in divination since a long time ago, and now that her cultivation was much higher than before, her understanding of all things and laws had become much deeper. Her divination skills were no longer the same as before. She pointed a finger at the tortoise shell and quickly wrote a few words on it. "Hidden dragon, do not use." When the light finished writing, Xie Daoling reached her hand out to hold the tortoise shell and shouted, "Burn!" Raging flames rose from her hands and burned the tortoise shell fiercely. A few moments later, when the shell was completely burnt black and no longer made any noise, the flames finally died out. After waiting for a few more breaths, when the tortoise shell was charred black and no longer emitted any sound, the flames were finally extinguished. The entire shell was burnt to a crisp, with many parts almost breaking apart. Only the part that said, "Hidden dragon, do not use," didn't have a single crack. Xie Daoling muttered, "Bad luck, bad for going out, good for safety. Seems like I really shouldn't go out anymore," Xie Daoling muttered. "Bad luck, bad for going out, good for safety. Seems like I really shouldn't go out anymore." She put the shell away, looked at the doll next to her, and sighed. "So it really was for my own good? Very well, I'll just stay here and cultivate until I break through." Putting the doll on her chest, the 100 Flowers fairy sat on the platform and closed her eyes to cultivate. A few moments of silence. The sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. Having her cultivation interrupted, Xie Daoling scowled and slowly opened her eyes. Qin Shaolu and Xiao Xiao were standing at the gate of the hall. 100 Flowers fairy was about to speak when she suddenly remembered her current appearance. "How should I explain my current state?" While she was hesitating, Qin Shaolu asked loudly, "Who are you, little girl? How dare he sit on the throne of 10,000 flowers? Are you tired of living?" 100 Flowers fairy sighed and explained, "Shaolu, I am your Shizhuan." Her expression was solemn and serious, but because she was too small, her serious expression made her look unusually cute and amusing. "Ha ha 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 ha! You said you were my master?" Qin Shaolu burst into laughter. From what he knew, he had already guessed that this little girl was most likely a big-shot cultivator from a certain world who brought her to visit his Shizhuan. Shaolu rolled up his sleeves and spoke with a fierce expression. "Don't be fooled by your cute appearance. Hurry up and get down from the throne. Otherwise, this uncle is very good at tickling." 100 Flowers fairy narrowed her eyes, exuding a dangerous aura. She couldn't give off any dangerous aura, since she was still too young. Other than a bit of cuteness, she couldn't give off anything else. This helpless reality caused Xie Daoling to feel annoyed. "Uncle? Tickling? Why do I have such an idiotic disciple like you?" She slowly spoke as her hands formed a hand seal. Very quickly, a desperate scream resounded in the hall. At another location, while the 4 lords were reading the newspaper, Gu Qingshan was also reading the newspaper. "Submachine gun. He's dead," he muttered to himself, unable to accept it. Who would have thought that such a powerful entity would die without a sound? What kind of existence was hidden in the school of divinity? While he was thinking, a female voice resounded in his ears. "What were you reading just now?" "I couldn't understand a single word," Ning Yuechan dejectedly said. This kind of emotion was extremely rare for her. After coming out and entering this unfamiliar environment, she found that she couldn't understand what the people around her were saying, not even the signboards of some shops. With her sharp senses, she even noticed that the signboards weren't written in the same language. Even when people talked to each other, they weren't speaking the same language. But before coming out, the sect had only prepared 3 of the most common languages for her. The sect had also tried their best. Gu Shan put the newspaper away and smiled to console her. "It's okay. Since we're out, we'll have to solve your language problem first. How did you solve it before?" Ning Yuechan asked. "I'm a friend from a certain organization. They helped me deal with it," Gu Shan replied. "Then what about me?" "Don't worry, I'll think of something." Saying so, Gu Shan took out a map. This was a map of the Sentry Outpost. Each area's functions and facilities were marked out. The Sentry Outpost was the closest super-dimensional world to the Strife Zones, so it had always been responsible for transporting people to the Strife Zones. Before entering the Strife Zones, anyone would stop here for a bit. So after so many years of development, this place had become unprecedentedly prosperous. It didn't look like a military base at all, but more like a bustling trading port. "I found it. We need to go through 2 streets. There are a few bookstores there." Gu Shan put the map away and said. Ning Yuechan nodded and followed him. There were a lot of people on the street. A few weird-looking guys caught Ning Yuxi's attention. "Look, why are their teeth so long?" She silently sent her voice. "Ah, that's a combatant of the mammoth race. So he's a monster?" "Yeah. The reason why he turned into a human is because his body is too big, so it's inconvenient for him to move around here. Another reason is that the old gods look exactly the same as humans. So all the races of the infinite worlds agree that the appearance of humans is the public image they use when communicating with other races." "You mean there are actually a lot of people here that aren't human?" "Yeah, are you afraid?" "How interesting," Ning Yuechan chuckled. At this point, a guy with black fur all over his body passed by Gu Shan and whispered in her ear, "I heard your conversation. This new chick isn't bad. How about you sell her to me?" "I'm not selling," Gu Shan replied. The guy glanced at Gu Shan a bit, took out a small machine, checked the data on it, then begrudgingly left. "From here on out, as long as there's a valid reason, killing is prohibited," Ning Yuechan suddenly said. "You can understand what it's saying?" Gu Shan was surprised. "I can't, but I can sense the malice in its eyes. Look, it's turning away from us. Can I catch up to it and cut off its head?" Ning Yuechan asked. Saying so, she was about to draw her blade. Gu Shan wiped the cold sweat off her forehead, quickly stopped her hand, and tried to persuade her. "We still haven't entered the Strife Zones. Let's talk inside. We don't need to pay attention to this garbage. How regretful that Long Tianxing isn't here. Otherwise, it would be even more fun if we went shopping together." "Him?" Gu Shan's sudden change of topic caught Ning Yuechan's attention and smiled. "I think it's better if he doesn't come. Why not? He's found a Tao companion. He's even going to have a child soon." "What?" Gu Shan shouted. "You didn't expect it, did you? His Tao companion is Li Xiao Yu of Luo Xia sect. Ah, it's that female cultivator known as one of the captivating birds and drooping geese female cultivators. You know that person too? You don't know how much Qin Shaolu envies them for having a title. He even wanted to form a brothel group with me last time." Ning Yuechan laughed. After laughing, she continued, "Li Xiaoyu is famous all over the world. For Lung Tianxing to be able to gain her approval and become her Tao companion. It's a blessing for his cultivation." "What do you mean?" "His awakened water spirit is inclined towards ice, so he's always cold. But with Li Xiaoyu around, he can't stay cold anymore. I remember one time, Lung Tianxing and I were leading a team to clear out a group of remnant evil beasts in Shenwu World, when Li Xiaoyu suddenly sent him a communication talisman, saying that she wanted to try his cooking, and then, at the time, he stopped for a second and said, "Okay, into the talisman, did he really leave?" At the time, the clearing was basically done, so he asked me to take care of the rest, then hurriedly went back to cook like a rabbit that got shot by an arrow." Ning Yuechan smiled and shook her head. I'll probably never forget the conflicted look on his face at this point. The two of them had reached their destination. There were a total of 4 bookstores in this alley. Gu Shan immediately saw a familiar face. An old man was sitting in front of the Spire Society's bookstore with a worried expression. This old man was the one who brought him to a bull before. "Ah, it's you?" Our esteemed friend. It's been a long time. The old man also saw him and forced a smile. Chapter 729. Have you seen the latest news? Gu Shan asked. How could I not? It's no longer as simple as just losing members, the old man smiled bitterly. What else happened? Gu Shan became cautious. The world layer where God Institute is located has suddenly broken free from the restraints of space and is heading towards our Spire Keeper Association's HQ, the old man replied. Gu Shan suddenly looked at him. The old man waved his hand helplessly and said, The distance is very far. It'll probably be a few hours before the two worlds collide. So after I'm done with your business, I'll have to close the door and return. Gu Shan sighed. I'm sorry to hear that, but unfortunately, I'm too weak to be of much help. I'm very grateful that you have such a thought. The old man was glad. Our world is very close to the 900 million world layers alliance. Many combatants of the 900 million world layers will come to help. Then I'll quickly buy everything I need so that it won't take up too much of your time. Gu Shan continued. This is my companion's first time entering the 900 million world layers. Please give her a knowledge-type spell that will allow her to instantly learn a language. You're going to the Strife Zones? Yes, we have to check in within an hour. There's probably no time to learn slowly, so we can only use the most expensive book. The old man took out a small, intricate book from the shelf. This book will allow you to instantly learn about 3,000 common languages, but it's also quite expensive. Seeing as you're an esteemed friend of our association, I can give you a generous discount. How much? 9%. Can it be any cheaper? This is already the biggest discount I can offer, sir. I really can't go any lower. A perfect discount. I'm very grateful. Then, please put on my tab, Justice Iron Fist Club. Gu Shan, the old man's expression became a bit more bitter. He tried to hold it in, but couldn't help but ask. Wait a minute. You're only giving it to this friend of yours once, right? Yes. Then you don't need to buy such an expensive book. Then what should I do? I remember we once gave you a blue book. Yes, but this book can only be used by one person. As Gu Shan spoke, she reached into her storage pouch and took out the book. The old man grabbed it, stroked it, and chanted an incantation in a low voice. All right, I've given you another permission. You can let your friend take this book and quickly comprehend the various languages in it. You don't need to buy any more. You are our esteemed guest. If you have to pay for everything, then you are treating us like outsiders. How generous. I don't even know how to thank you. You're welcome. Please take a look outside. There are 3 more bookstores on this road. Next time, please visit them. That would be my greatest gratitude. Oh, okay, goodbye. Goodbye. You're welcome to visit the other bookstores. The old man sent the 2 of them out and hurriedly closed the door with a bang. Gu Shan led Ning Yuechan outside. He gave the blue book to Ning Yuechan. What should I do? Ning Yuechan asked. As long as you hold it in your hand, it will tell you all the languages of the various worlds. There are too many languages in the 900 million world layers, so it would take you about 100 breaths worth of time to learn a few billion languages. Ning Yuechan. She hugged the blue book tightly to her chest. Gu Shan thought for a bit, then said, Don't throw this book away after you use it. I'll probably be able to use it to help other people learn languages I understand. Also, I noticed that you didn't pay just now, did you? Ning Yuechan asked. My name is Money, Gu Shan replied. Ning Yuechan opened her eyes wide as she stared at him, as if trying to leave a deep impression. While walking forward, Gu Shan muttered in a low voice, Ah, that's right, this is also the first time I've experienced this feeling. It's so memorable. They quickly reached the checkpoint of the sentry outpost. The procedure to clear the checkpoint was very simple. In front of the checkpoint counter, a man in military uniform received their cards, stamped them with a stamp, then returned them to them. After finishing his work, the man took out a small green card and asked in a low voice, I can arrange a good spot for newcomers here. Do you want to buy it? You can arrange things in the Strife Zones? Doesn't that mean newcomers can directly carry that order? Gu Shan was surprised. Seeing that he was interested, the man patiently explained, The Strife Zones have a total of 200 million world layers. Of course, we don't have that ability, but we're already very familiar with the first zone where newcomers are active. We know which zones have the most black demon goats, as well as which zones are easier to kill, so we can directly transport you to those zones. Black demon goats? were the weakest type of monster in the strife zones, usually appearing in the newcomer zone. Newcomers can only be carried by the Order by killing black demon goats. That is an order created by the old gods. It doesn't harm living beings at all, and it can even help living beings evolve and improve. But of course, you have to make it interested in you first. As a newcomer, the only way to make it interested is to kill a large number of black demon goats. The more you kill, the easier it will be for the Order to notice you. The man continued in a low voice. This is the best way to quickly clear the first zone. Do you want to buy it? Gu Qing also whispered, I don't have any money. Can I put on the tab for now? The man looked at Gu Qing as if he was looking at a great mountain. Put on the tab. This young man has such a bright future. After thinking for a bit, the man nodded. If your organization has a good reputation, it's not impossible. Then that's easy. I'm a member of the Justice Iron Fist Club. My name is the Justice Iron Fist Club. As soon as he said that, the man couldn't help but tremble. He cut off Gu Qingshan's words and sternly told her, We don't accept any bribes, nor do we sell any information to you. This is an important measure to ensure fair competition. He waved his hand with an expression of righteousness, ushering the two of them through the checkpoint. After passing the checkpoint, they arrived at the waiting room. This room was filled with humanoid creatures of all shapes and sizes, all of them holding a green card in their hands. With this green card, they would be sent to the area where it was easiest to kill black demon goats. They looked at Gu Qingshan and Ning Yuechan. Seeing that they didn't have a green card, they all mocked them. Two poor bastards, brainless, not even knowing how to fight for such benefits. Don't say anything. Just let them slowly stay in the first zone. Aha! Who cares about them? We'll quickly pass through anyway. Don't look at them. There's no point in paying attention to these blockheads. These creatures were quickly talking to each other. Gu Qingshan led Ning Yuechan to a corner and sat down. You seem to have angered that staff member just now, Ning Yuechan commented. He didn't allow me to put it on the tab. Gu Qingshan regretfully replied. I can understand what you're talking about now. So we won't have any advantages after we go in. Only in the beginning, because the strife zones aren't something that anyone can control. They can only give us a small advantage at the start, Gu Qingshan replied. At this point, a green man sitting in front of him loudly laughed. A small advantage? Don't you know how many idiots stayed in the first zone for 7 to 8 years without being able to leave? His companion replied, Don't say that. He's also an idiot. Everyone else laughed without restraint. Shut up. All of you, a loud voice resounded. Everyone went silent. A staff member came in and looked at the cards in everyone's hands. He began to arrange everyone. You and the rest of you, come with me. The war point has been confirmed. The others stood up and followed him. A few moments later, the staff member came in again and led the newcomers to the war point. Gu Qingshan observed for a bit and found that the newcomers with green cards were given priority, while the newcomers who didn't have cards were still waiting in their seats. What do we do now? Ning Yuechan asked. Let's wait. These things don't really matter, Gu Qingshan sighed and said. A few moments later, after everyone had been warped, it was finally the turn of the newcomers without cards. The staff member led them to the war point and spoke with an indescribable tone. I hope you'll have a good time in the first zone. What does he mean by that? An ignorant newcomer asked the person next to him. He's saying that we won't be able to pass the first zone, another newcomer angrily replied. The screen of light flashed. The last group of newcomers disappeared from the warp point. The strife zones. The first zone. Mountains. Plains. The war had begun. In the empty city gate tower, groups of newcomers suddenly appeared and landed on top of the city walls. These city walls were quite far away from each other and were separated by a large energy barrier, so they couldn't connect to each other and could only watch from afar. Below the city walls, a group of black goat-headed demons noticed the change in the world. They angrily roared and charged towards the city walls. These goat-headed demons were the black demon goats. They were a type of evil monster that used the power of blood and slaughter as nutrients for their evolution. They were cruel by nature and showed no mercy to any other living beings. As soon as the newcomers arrived at the city walls, they immediately entered an urgent battle. They had to protect the city walls and kill these black demon goats with everything they had. If they performed well, they would attract the attention of the Order and be loaded. Kill! Dash! The newcomers roared and declared their will to fight. The flames of war raged everywhere. The sounds of killing could be heard everywhere, enough to make anyone's blood boil. Gu Qingshan was also standing on top of one of the city walls. He cupped his hand and looked afar. However, the city wall that he and Ning Yuechan were on was located on top of a steep mountain. The black demon goats were focused on attacking the city walls on the plains, so they weren't interested in the city walls on top of this mountain. There were so many city walls on the plains. Who would be willing to climb up such a high mountain to attack a city wall on such a steep terrain? This was a matter of course. Ning Yuechan was an experienced general, so as soon as she looked at the mountain, then at the battle situation on the plains, she immediately understood the situation. It wasn't just her. The newcomers who were transported here all showed expressions of grief and indignation. They purposely placed us here, one of the newcomers called out. Feathers sprouted from his body and turned into a pair of wings. He leapt into the air and flew towards the plains. Bam! With a loud sound of impact, the newcomer crashed into the barrier and bounced back. This was an isolation barrier set up by the Order. The newcomers weren't strong enough to break it. Ning Yuechan put the blade in her hand away and shook her head. We can't leave, and the monsters won't come. Are we really going to stay here and do nothing? Of course not, Gu Qingshan replied. Ning Yuechan's eyes lit up and asked, You've always had a lot of wicked ideas. What do you have in mind? Gu Qingshan sighed and replied, There's only one problem in front of us that needs to be solved. As soon as he said that, he caught the attention of all the newcomers around him. What problem? Ning Yuechan looked at him and asked, Conquer or be conquered. Saying so, Gu Qingshan pulled out the War God title option from the War God UI. He quickly found the title he needed. Chapter 730. A few lines of glowing text quickly appeared on the War God UI. To conquer or to be conquered, that is the question. Title: Starflame War God. Using this title will grant you the exclusive skill, Conquer. Conquer. When you use this skill, all enemies you designate will be forced to attack you due to a valid reason. Description: This is a mystic-type skill. A karmic skill cannot be exempted. Gu Qingshan swiftly locked onto the Starflame War God title and selected all the black demon goats to conquer. When he opened the War God UI and chose his title, on the plain, in the middle of the neighboring towers, several herds of black demon goats had already gathered together. The leader of the black demon goats stepped forward and issued a pre-battle mobilization to the rest of the black demon goats. Ba 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 ba. We can't go on like this. All the sheep, everyone gather, prepare for concentrated attack. Under its command, more and more black demon goats gathered, forming a powerful fighting force. Seeing that thousands of black demon goats had gathered, the leader of the black demon goats nodded in satisfaction. It pointed at the nearest tower and roared, Ba ba! Attack! At this time, Gu Qingshan had just activated Conquer. The restless black demon goats immediately paused. There was a sudden change. 7 to 8 bulky black demon goats suddenly charged out, stabbing their weapons into the black demon goat leader. The black demon goat leader slowly looked down, staring at the weapons that had pierced through its body. It turned to a black demon goat and said with difficulty, Meh, meh, curly hair, why are you here? The black demon goat coldly said, Ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba. A just cause enjoys abundant support. An unjust cause finds little. It retracted its weapon and stabbed the black demon goat leader's vitals again. Continuous stabs. The black demon goat leader knelt on the ground, then collapsed. It died on the spot. The sheep were silent. Their king was dead. On the battlefield, all attack stopped. The flock of goats gathered in front of the black demon goat leader's corpse. On the various city towers, the rookies of the myriad races had no choice but to stop attacking. Although a single black demon goat wasn't strong, it was a different story when all the black demon goats gathered together. When countless black demon goats gathered together, the power they could unleash was far from ordinary. Even the newbies didn't dare to leave the tower to deal with a huge flock of black demon goats. What is the black demon goat doing? The rookies of the various races thought in bewilderment. At this moment, in the center of the black demon goat flock, the black demon goat named Curly stepped on the corpse of the former leader and shouted, "Ba ba, ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba. He deserves to die. He was the one who led us to recklessly attack the city walls, but we never succeeded." There was a commotion among the sheep. A sheep said doubtfully, "Ba ba 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 ba. But we can only get some blood power by attacking the tower. There's no other way." These words were very practical. Reality was just that cruel. If the black demon goat wanted to evolve, it would have to attack the towers, otherwise it would not be able to obtain the power to evolve. The other black demon goats nodded in agreement. They looked at Curly Hair, wanting to hear what he had to say. Curly Hair took a deep breath, raised his hooves, and said to all the black demon goats, "Ba ba 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 ba. I have a dream." It gave an impassioned speech and finally waved its hoof, pointing at the steep mountain in the distance. "Ba ba 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 ba." Curly Hair roared as he continued. "The mountain is easy to defend and hard to attack. It can become our new home. When we have that city tower, the creatures of the myriad races will have no choice but to attack our city tower. The situation will be reversed." He pointed at himself and shouted, "Ba ba 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 ba. Your new king now commands you attack." The flock of sheep were in an uproar. They had never thought that they would have a mountain and a tower. Curly Hair was right. Their race needed a strong defensive wall. Their race would build a kingdom of black demon goats there. Ba, 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 ba. The flock of sheep roared in anger. They charged towards the mountain in the distance. This commotion was quickly noticed by the other towers. "What's going on? Why did they all leave?" One of the newcomers shouted. Another newcomer was already panicking. Who would be able to kill the flock of sheep after they left? Who would be able to attract the attention of order? He flew out of the tower and chased after the flock of sheep from afar. Don't even think of running. His roar was abruptly cut off. BIA. He crashed headfirst into the barrier. His entire body stuck to the barrier, unable to fall down for a long time. It seems like this crash was a bit too much. Another newcomer saw the flock of sheep enter the territory of his tower and also flew out of the tower with a few of his brothers. Then they flew back with their tails between their legs. Not good. There were too many black demon goats. Without a tower to rely on, they weren't a match at all. The flock of sheep quickly went past the territory of this tower. On the plains, all the towers could only watch as the flock of sheep went further and further away. What the fuck is going on here? The newcomers dejectedly thought. No one could understand the language of the black demon goats, so no one knew that a coup had just taken place within the black demon goats that could change the fate of all black demon goats. At another location, on top of a steep mountain, loud cheers erupted from the lonely city gate tower. The newcomers excitedly took out their weapons, rubbing their palms as they waited for the flock of sheep to arrive. Ning Yuechan had already donned her Yongjin general armor. She looked at Gu Qing-shan and smiled. "How did you do it?" Gu Qing-shan didn't answer her directly and instead said, "This is the first time you've left your original world, so I want to give you a piece of advice. Please go ahead. There are billions of worlds in the 900 million world layers. There are bound to be some living beings with unique abilities that we can't predict or judge. I hope that you will be careful in your future battles." Ning Yuechan stayed silent for a bit, then replied, "I understand what you mean. Not too far away from the bottom of the mountain, the flock of demon goats had already broken through the mountain barrier and entered this area. As Ning Yuechan observed the incoming flock of demon goats, she raised her hand to cover her face with her helmet. Her clear voice came from behind the cold metal helmet. "However, I think those living beings should understand something." "What is it?" Gu Qing-shan asked. "They have to be careful on my blade." Boom. Ning Yuechan wielded the blade in her hand, leapt into the sky, and charged toward the flock of black demon goats. From afar, one could only see a white streak of light descending from the sky, falling into the middle of the flock of black goats, then being devoured by the endless darkness. A moment of silence. A blinding blade phantom rose to the sky. The blade phantoms overlapped one another, sharp and ferocious, slashing towards the flock of black demon goats in every direction. The flock of goats screeched in pain. The blade was merciless. As the blade phantoms turned, it quickly headed towards the center of the flock. The flock of black demon goats quickly reacted. The black demon goats all rushed towards where the blade was, wanting to kill this reckless person with everything they had. But the blade phantoms were too fierce. Any existence that attempted to block it would be chopped into several pieces and blown away. Severed limbs and black blood flowed everywhere. It was as if a storm of death had swept through the flock of black demon goats. The blade moved forward, and forward again. Countless black demon goats screamed in fear and anger. Even though everything happened too suddenly, there were still quite a few black demon goats who managed to react. They slowly realized a certain fact. They didn't think that the other party would be able to discover the Goat King's hiding spot so quickly. The black demon goats all rushed towards the center, wanting to protect their new Goat King. Like a tidal wave, they surged towards the blade's direction in an attempt to stop its momentum. Swing! 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 Ning Yuechan kept moving forward. But no matter how strong she was only one person. Under the increasing pressure of the black demon goats, her blade couldn't help but slow down, showing signs of being unable to continue. Not good. Gu Qingshan's expression changed. As he was about to move, a clear shout resounded from within the flock of black demon goats. "You die or I die," the girl loudly called out. A split second later, the blade phantoms became even brighter. The blinding blade continued to advance. In the blink of an eye, everything that stood in front of the blade was sliced apart by the blade phantom. She continued forward, heading straight for the heart of the black demon goats. Shah! The blade phantom flashed again. The new Goat King was cut in half by the blade phantom. The flock of black demon goats went silent. The king was killed. The king was killed. The newcomers who had just rushed forward couldn't help but stop. How shocking. How could there be such a killing technique? This girl doesn't even care about her own life when she attacks. A second later, the black demon goats let out a desperate and furious roar. They all attacked at once, attacking the blade-wielding girl with everything they had. She dared to ambush and kill the king. This human girl must die. But a screen of light flashed across the black demon goats group. In a split second, the girl wearing the snow-white armor disappeared from the encirclement. She disappeared without a trace. No matter how the black demon goats searched, they couldn't find her. The newcomers were also surprised. Chapter 731. Gu Qingshan rubbed his forehead, speechless. This last was really too fierce. Even when Master was fighting with others, he would have to think it over before making a move. But this girl only has eyes for the blade. At the very last moment, just now, Gu Qingshan's inner sight covered the entire flock of black demon goats and locked on to Ning Yuechan. He almost activated ground shrink. Fortunately, he was a split second too late. Otherwise, if he went over and Ning Yuechan disappeared, he would be the only one in the flock of furious goats. That's Gu Qingshan's side. Thinking about it, it's fine. Ning Yuechan killed the Black Demon Goat King right away. With such a stunning performance, she was able to gain the favor of the Life Order and directly pass the New World. This way, I won't have to worry too much. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan slowly calmed down. Right now, he only needed to think of a way to carry the Life Order. The Life Order was a unique order created by the old gods. The old gods hated order because the various orders had countless ways to tempt living beings. The old gods couldn't possibly watch over the infinite number of living beings in the Milky Way at all times. The old gods couldn't do anything about this. After countless years, the old gods finally came up with a way to go against the order. That was to create an order themselves, then use order to fight against order. The old gods created a total of 2 orders. One was the Holy God Order. The other was the Life Order. Among them, the Holy God Order could only be carried by a believer of the old gods. The Holy God Order contained many of the old gods' divine techniques, divine retribution techniques, divine skills, and divinity. Any believer who is qualified to carry the Holy God Order would be able to replace the old gods and walk the path of divinity among the billions of living beings. But the life order was different. This was the path of evolution that the old gods created based on the fundamental law of the billions of living beings in existence. To be carried by the life order, living beings of the infinite worlds would receive the key to rapid evolution. Their strength would quickly increase. Their very essence of life would undergo an unprecedented and perfect evolution. Both of these orders existed in the 200 million world layers of the strife zones. That's why the strife zones are truly a place that all living beings yearn for. But the strife zones were a huge battlefield. The old gods had created order, here to fight against all enemies who opposed the creation of the world. This place was filled with all kinds of dangers and confrontations, from fights to assassinations, small-scale team battles, treasure fights, wars between churches and guilds, full-scale wars, and worldwide disasters. All kinds of dangerous situations emerged one after another. This was a meat grinder that harvested the lives of all living beings. Without reaching a certain level of power, it would be impossible to obtain a newcomer qualification from the 900 Million World Layers Alliance. After entering this place, the newbies must seek various ways to become stronger or die halfway. Gu Qingshan stood on the watchtower and looked down. The angry flock of sheep charged straight at the city tower on the high mountain. When the Black Devil Goat King died, a new Goat King was born. It was clear that it wanted to carry out the will of the previous Goat King. Quite a number of rookies circled the edges of the flock, waiting for an opportunity to erupt with a wave of attacks, reaping the lives of the flock. The flock angrily retaliated. Their bodies were agile. The pair of horns on their heads were not only incredibly sharp, but they were also capable of unleashing different kinds of attacks. Gu Qingshan saw with her own eyes a newcomer being hit by over a dozen spells at once, then being headbutted by several black devil goats before being dismembered by 7 to 8 of their horns. This newcomer provided the black devil goats with precious blood power. The black devil goats became even larger. All sorts of mysterious patterns began to grow on the 2 horns on their heads. Some died, but some succeeded. Another newcomer killed over 30 black devil goats in a row and was about to run away, but suddenly froze. "Ah, I'll be going first," he laughed maniacally and shouted. A few moments later, a screen of light enveloped him and disappeared without a trace. This scene obviously stimulated even more people to take the risk out of desperation. Everyone had already charged down the watchtower, fighting against the black devil goats as they retreated. The advantage of this strategy was that they could retreat at any time while also finding a chance to kill 1 or 2 black devil goats. The battle had entered its most brutal and intense stage. But Gu Qingshan didn't join in. He looked left and right. There was no one on the watchtower. Walking behind the fortified fortifications, Gu Qingshan tapped his inventory bag, took out a small formation plate, and began to arrange it. After several dozen layers of defensive formations were arranged, he arranged a soundproof formation at the very end. "You can come out now," Gu Qingshan said. Behind him, the 6 Paths Great Mountain sword slowly manifested from the void of space. The sword turned into Shanu and landed in front of Gu Qingshan. Gongzi Shanu greeted him. When Lady Black Sea was selecting the newcomers, did you see or hear anything?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Gongzi, is this very important?" Shanu carefully asked. "It's very important. I want to know exactly what happened at the time," Gu Qingshan very seriously replied. "I understand," Shanu nodded. "Gongzi, I'm very sure that the other party didn't use any sort of technique on you, but I couldn't see her face or know what she did to you. How is that possible?" "You can cut off all laws," Gu Qingshan unwillingly said. "I can, but the other party didn't use any technique on you, so I couldn't cut it off. There aren't any spells or techniques in the space I'm in either. That's why I don't know what exactly she did, but I couldn't even see the lady's face in the deep sea. So I'm guessing that she wasn't in the same space-time as us." "Not in the same space-time?" "That's right. Unfortunately, She didn't use this space-time on Gongzi's body. Otherwise, I would definitely be able to cut off her technique and see her face, Shanu regretfully said. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan was completely shocked. According to the results of the newcomer selection, this woman who was in a different space-time was able to take in all the newcomers and test their strength in just a few breaths worth of time. What kind of power does that require? Gu Qingshan sighed and continued to ask, did she say anything? She seemed to have said quite a few things, but I could only faintly hear the one where her emotions were the most intense. What did she say? She seemed to really want you to quickly become stronger, quickly become stronger. Gu Qingshan fell into thought. Wanting me to become stronger means that the other party doesn't have any ill intentions. Then why did she give me the identity of Ritterni? There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world, so the other party must have a reason for doing so. The identity of Ritterni must also have its uses. If the other party had good intentions, this identity would most likely bring me some sort of convenience or even something extremely beneficial. Then, what would this identity bring me? Gu Qingshan silently thought for a bit, then suddenly stopped thinking. Become stronger, he muttered, left the fortification, and headed down the steep mountain below. The black demon goat's ambush had resulted in more and more newbies disappearing. Some newbies were killed and turned into the power of blood of the black demon goats. Others, due to their outstanding performance, attracted the attention of the life order and disappeared from the newbie world. There weren't many newbies left at the foot of the mountain. They were hurriedly retreating up the mountain. At the same time, the black demon goats began to climb up. Gu Qingshan stood in the wind, silently watching the moving goats. She wants me to become stronger. That's right, if I'm not strong enough, what right do I have to ask her the reason? Even if I know some secrets, what right do I have to protect them? To put it bluntly, within the endless apocalypse of the infinite world's destruction, being weak is the sin of all living beings. Only the most powerful of living beings will have more freedom, the ability to search for the deeper secrets of the world's destruction, the ability to see the truth behind all phenomena. Gu Qingshan sighed and stopped thinking about it. I've arrived at the strife zones. The path is right under my feet. Looking at the approaching black demon goats, he reached his hand into the void of space. He was holding a bow in his hand. The night rain. At the same time, a quiver of arrows appeared on his back. He raised the bow and aimed at the approaching black demon goats. The bowstring didn't move, but two blurred figures turned into a gust of wind and flew towards the goats. The Chowing Sword. The Six Paths Great Mountain Sword. Chapter 732. The Strife Zones. The Holy Church of Death. The Church. Good morning, sir. Greetings, sir. Esteemed sir, what business do you have? The believers all bowed to greet him. Black Dog hovered in the air and nodded to the believers. Anna still hasn't come out? He asked. That's right. She's still training her skills in the withered world. I'll go take a look. Saying so, Black Dog disappeared from the church. A second later, he appeared in a gloomy world. The presence of death. I can sense it. It's over there. Black Dog found the right direction and flew at an unimaginable speed. In just a few breaths worth of time, he arrived at his destination. He landed on top of a skyscraper and looked at the ruins of the world in the distance, only to see a gigantic figure approaching from afar from the faint gray light. Thud, thud, thud. Every step the figure took caused the ground to shake violently. Black Dog silently stared at the figure until it stopped in front of the skyscraper. The figure was almost as tall as the skyscraper. Its entire body was covered in pale white armor. Its helmet was even tighter without a single gap for eyes to see through. As it stood still, the ground it touched slowly turned from dirt to gravel. Even the skyscraper that Black Dog was standing on was slowly decaying. Black Dog looked at this gigantic monster and solemnly asked, Withered Envoy, do you pledge your loyalty to the Holy Church of Death? Heavy breathing could be heard from behind the armor, as if the monster was going through some sort of struggle and hesitation. At this point, a person suddenly appeared on top of the monster's helmet. Anna, who had been focused on her cultivation, had once again appeared. She didn't look any different from before. still beautiful and full of youthful vigor. However, her crimson-red hair had changed a bit. Her long hair had turned completely black, but it wasn't a normal black. Instead, it was giving off a mysterious and unfathomable aura of darkness. Anna disinterestedly raised her long black scythe, swung it horizontally, and struck the sturdy helmet of the monster. "Don't give me any trouble. Did you forget what I told you just now?" she asked. The monster stopped breathing in pain and slowly knelt in front of Black Dog. "I swear my loyalty to the Holy Church of Death." The monster let out a thunderous sound and spoke. Black Dog got his answer, and his body immediately surged with raging dark flames. The black flames formed a line of text in the air and flew straight into the monster's body. The monster trembled in pain and only regained its composure after a while. Black Dog said, "The divine contract has been formed. Come, before all things end, you will be in the arms of the god of death. This is the highest honor." Bang, on both sides of the withered envoy's body, two giant black doors suddenly opened. The withered envoy didn't have time to do anything, and its figure disappeared into the dark door. But Anna was safe and sound. She landed lightly on the skyscraper, put the dark scythe on her shoulder, and yawned. "I'm so tired. I'm going back to sleep." "Oh yes, what are you doing here?" Black Dog was silent for a while, then said, "You can even subdue the withering messenger. I have to say, your progress is quite fast." "Nonsense, get to the point. I'm afraid you won't have time to sleep." "Why should I? I worked so hard to deal with a troublemaker. Don't even think about ordering me to do anything else. I want to go back to my beauty sleep." "I'll buy you a drink." "So generous? Don't tell me I'm paying again." "No, of course I'm paying. If you're still worried, I'll pay first after you've ordered, then we can drink together." That's quite sincere." "Very well, I'll go with you for a drink before going back to sleep. But before that, you have to represent the Holy Church of Death to greet a few guests, so you still want to order me around." "No need. I don't want to go with you. I could go buy myself a drink." "Anna, listen to me. This is the easiest job. You only need to say a few words to those people. Then you can come back and I'll buy you a drink," Black Dog said. "Really?" Anna was a bit doubtful. "Of course. I've given the others extremely difficult jobs, but you're different. Since we're so close in private, I've secretly given you the easiest job," Black Dog sincerely told her. "If it's just to greet them, if it doesn't take too long, it's fine," Anna muttered. "Of course. I'll wait for you at the Holy Church. We'll go to the bar as soon as you come back." Black Dog said, "Very well. Seeing how sincere you are, I'll go. But you have to tell me who they are and what I'm going to say when I get there. They're all allies of the Holy Church, core members of their respective forces, about the same status as you. Why am I going to see them? To get to know each other, to avoid hurting each other in battle later on. That's simple. Then let's go, finish what we need to do, and come back for a drink." Saying so, the man and dog disappeared from the withered world. A few moments later, Anna hurriedly arrived at a certain secret meeting room of the Holy Church. There were already 7 to 8 men and women waiting here. They came from various sects and forces. All of them were powerful combatants. "My apologies. I'm late." She was wearing a long black dress and spoke elegantly. It's clearly such an important matter, and you're still so late," a fully armored woman with a nervous expression commented. My time is just right. Or were you hoping for death to arrive a bit earlier?" Anna smiled and said. Seeing how relaxed she was, the woman recalled her identity as a member of the Holy Church of Death, so she held back and didn't say anything else. Anna looked at everyone's expressions and asked in confusion, "Everyone, sit down. There's so many seats. What are you all standing for?" One of the men glanced at the pocket watch in his hand and replied, "I'm afraid we don't have time to sit down and talk." "That's right. Since the people of the Holy Church of Death are here, we can begin now," another person said. Everyone turned to a woman with a misty figure. Seeing everyone looking at her, the woman said, "Then let's go, but we'll need a bit of protection as we travel between the world layers of the strife zones." "I'll do that," another person said. He was holding a sphere of frost in his hand that gave off an eerie chill. "My frost technique will be able to seal all of our presence to the maximum, making it impossible for anyone to notice. Of course, during this process, Everyone will be completely frozen for 30 breaths worth of time, temporarily unable to move, someone praised. It's just being frozen. We don't need to endure any pain. That's already good enough. That's right. There's no time to lose. Let's move right away. Another person urged. Listening to everyone's conversation, Anna couldn't help but be surprised. The situation in front of me seems to be a bit different from what Black Dog said. I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask. She was trying to ask something. But it was too late. The sphere of frost had already been crushed. In an instant, everyone in the room was covered in a layer of frost. Anna couldn't move. Everyone else couldn't move either. At the same time, the illusory woman had already activated her spell. A giant mouth appeared below everyone's feet. The huge mouth rushed upwards and swallowed everyone into its mouth. Following that, a transparent monster crawled out from the ground. This monster looked a bit like a giant fish from the age of old. It shook its body a bit, then quickly disappeared into the void of space, heading towards a certain world layer. On another side, at the top of the divine temple, a conversation was silently taking place. Is it a good idea to lie to her like that? Black Crow asked. Such a troublesome matter. There's no way to make her agree to go. So this is the only thing I can do, Black Dog replied. But when she returns, she'll tear the divine temple apart again, Black Crow sighed. Let her do as she pleases. Speaking of which, I need to go on a very difficult missionary mission right now. I won't be able to return for a while, Black Dog said. It suddenly disappeared. Only Black Crow remained at the top of the divine temple. Black Crow went silent for a while. She ran away because she was afraid of a mortal getting angry. That's so embarrassing. Chapter 733. The almost transparent giant fish was quickly moving through the boundless space vortex. The strange creatures that flew around the fish didn't notice its existence at all. If someone could see the fish's movements from start to finish, they would notice that it was following a unique path that was constantly moving toward a certain direction. At some point, the transparent fish arrived at the center of the strife zones. In fact, the entire 200 million world layers of the strife zones had formed a closed spiral around this central location. However, there was nothing in the center. After swimming for a bit, the transparent fish's body suddenly glowed with 7 different colors. The green light that represented life, the blue starlight that represented space and time, the gray mist that represented fate, the holy pillar that represented faith, the dark purple net that represented mystery, the glorious golden light that represented civilization, and the dark waterfall that represented the return of all things to silence. The 7 colors of light intertwined and shined upon the void of space. A hole appeared in the void of space. The fish leapt up and went into the hole. In a split second, the 7 colors of light disappeared without a trace. The fish and the hole also disappeared without a trace. The empty main hall. Anna's expression was extremely stern. Her expression was frigid as she angrily stood in front of her 6 companions, looking at the luxurious dress that she originally wore for socializing. Then at her 6 companions who were fully armored, Anna couldn't hold back her anger any longer. So you all knew what was going to happen, and I'm the only idiot? She coldly asked. The other 6 exchanged glances. A woman wearing a bright green cloak spoke. This mission isn't normal at all. How could your holy church of death treat it so lightly? She stared at Anna's almost perfect face, feeling her alluring demeanor as a hint of jealousy flashed through her eyes. The man covered in frost also spoke. That's right, this mission is extremely sacred. Our church had even conducted a battle to qualify for this mission. It was only because I was the final champion that I managed to qualify for this mission. Just look at your holy church of death, huh? The woman wearing the bright green cloak coldly sneered. Our Church of Life takes this matter very seriously. I had to do everything in my power to get the chance to come here this time. Who would have thought that the Holy Church of Death's most outstanding newcomer in 700 years would be an idiot who doesn't even know what she's supposed to do? Anna was silent for a moment. She tied up her shoulder-length hair and whispered in her heart, "Death follows me like a shadow." In the air, a pitch-black scythe with a long handle appeared in her hand. Anna gripped her scythe and stared coldly at the woman in the emerald green cloak. She said softly, "If you have a problem with me, why don't you come up and experience the secret of death?" Glancing at the man covered in frost, Anna continued, "You can come along too. I promise I'll get rid of your opinions about me as well. Only the dead have no objections." This was Anna's provocation towards the two of them. The expressions of the man and woman changed at the same time. They were about to attack, but when they saw the sharp black scythe, their hearts were filled with hesitation. This woman, called Anna, was very mysterious and had always been cherished by the Holy Church of Death. Even when she went out to drink and play, she was accompanied by a deity of service. No one could figure out her background. However, it was foreseeable that if the entire church valued one person so much, there must be something special about her. Coupled with the uniqueness of her church, she might not be able to win this fight. Do we really have to go against death? The two of them hesitated, unable to make up their minds. Wait! A man with a full head of blonde hair abruptly stepped forward and stood in between them. He smiled and tried to smooth things over. "We're naturally comrades on the same front. Although this is the first time we've met, who can say that we won't help each other in the future? There's no need to make our relationship so stiff." Looking at Anna, the blonde man gently told her, "I can tell you this. The reason why we've come here as representatives of our respective churches in the most secretive way possible is because the Book of Seven Gods can once again be activated." Anna revealed a look of understanding. "So that's why. Black Dog tricked me into coming here just to do such a troublesome thing." Thinking that, Anna was so troubled that she even forgot to fight. The Book of Seven Gods, also known as the Book of Prophecy of the Gods, was a prophecy written by the seven gods at the same time. Every few hundred years, or even 1,000 years, the Book of Prophecy would be able to send out the prophecies of the gods. At each time, the believers of the seven gods would need to come together and think of a way to pass the tests of the seven gods in order to receive the corresponding prophecy. The tests of the gods were varied and strange. No one could predict what kind of test they would face. Sometimes the gods would ask you to conquer a world. It was very simple, but most of the time, the test was much more difficult. At the very beginning, every church treated this as a sacred matter. So the ones who came were either the leaders of the church, or at the very least, the elders with actual authority. But ever since an elder of the church was given a test by the seven gods, requiring him to perform the dance of 7 million races in 5 years, the leaders of the church couldn't wait any longer and gradually stopped coming. The elders also couldn't wait to avoid it. In the end, this became the ultimate test for the newcomers of each church. No matter what, as long as the newcomer succeeded, they would bring the prophecy back with them. If they failed, they could simply send someone else. The newcomers would always receive rewards from the church after the event. Those rewards were quite decent. Others might care about these things, but Anna only felt that it was troublesome. With her current development, she only needed to keep going. She didn't care about the rewards that weren't particularly important anymore. Anna lowered her head and sighed. "It's fine. We can't leave even if we're already here. Let's begin. The sooner we finish, the sooner we can." The two of them were nervously preparing for battle. But seeing her suddenly losing her will to fight and becoming dejected, they couldn't help but exchange glances. Didn't she want to fight? Why did she suddenly have such an expression? The two of them hesitated and decided to use this chance to leave. Anna had already forgotten about them. They were so weak, and the matter she had to face was so troublesome, she no longer had any desire to fight. In the end, neither of them fought. "All right, let's finish what we have to do," the blond man smiled. He opened his palm. A small, delicate blade silently hovered in his palm. Golden light began to radiate from the blade. Anna sighed helplessly and lightly stomped the ground with her scythe. Intense black light erupted from the scythe to the sky. The blinding black light completely enveloped Anna, forming a dark abyss that led to an unknown place. This was only a casual release of her power. Such shocking power once again caused everyone's expressions to change. One of the men laughed self-deprecatingly, took out a trident, and silently chanted the words of the gods. A faint purple net of light appeared on the trident. The woman in the emerald green cloak took out a longbow. The man exuding frigid cold aura took out a glove and put it on. The other woman, who had her eyes closed and hadn't said a single word this entire time, took off the pendant around her neck and held it in her hand. The man with the largest stature didn't take anything out, but a pair of holy wings slowly spread behind his back. Various kinds of light began to radiate from their bodies. The 7 lights had gathered. The empty hall seemed to have sensed the arrival of the followers of the 7 gods as it began to rumble and tremble. A book made entirely out of stone emerged from the ground, silently standing in front of the 7 of them. This book was about 3 people tall, engraved with dignified divine runes. The pages were tightly closed without any signs of being opened. "The stone book has appeared. We can begin," the blond man said. He stepped forward, knelt down on one knee, and placed his hand on the surface of the stone book. The others also stepped forward, knelt down on one knee, and placed their hands on the surface of the stone book. And aside, but had no choice but to do the same. A few moments later, nothing happened at all. The 7 of them all appeared surprised. That can't be right. According to the records, whenever they reached this step in the past, the stone book would choose a follower of the gods and issue a specific test. Once this follower completed the test, they would receive the corresponding prophecy. If they couldn't, the stone book would choose another follower from the other 6 to complete the test. But why didn't the stone book do anything this time? Just as everyone was feeling astonished, a sacred and solemn voice suddenly rang out from the Book of Stone. A profound and irresolvable ominous omen is manifesting. Outside the strife zones, unprecedented destruction has begun. The prophecy of the 7 gods has reached its end. Chapter 734. The stone book had issued an unprecedented warning. The followers of the 7 gods all changed their expressions. They were all elites of their respective churches, so they could easily understand the chilling intent in the stone book's words. "This is a very important matter. Should we stop and return to the church first?" The girl with her eyes closed moved her hand away from the stone book and suggested. Among everyone here, she was the youngest, so she was already feeling a bit nervous. "I agree." Anna immediately raised both hands. The others also moved their hand away from the stone book and stopped infusing their power. The stone book immediately went silent. The blond man then spoke with a serious tone. "The stone book has appeared, which means that the power of God has completely sealed off this world. We won't be able to leave. Indeed, this is quite troublesome. Only when all 7 of us fail will the exit to this world appear," the green-cloaked girl said. "Then we can just purposely fail," the girl with her eyes closed said. Anna agreed excitedly. "That's a good idea. As long as everyone fails, I'll be able to return to the church. This is the best way to save time." Anna looked at the others expectantly, hoping that they would agree with her point of view. But the others all shook their heads. The blond man spoke. "Ladies, you seem to have misunderstood something important," Anna asked. "What important thing?" The blond man slowly clenched his fist and spoke in a low voice. "The prophecy of the 7 gods has come to an end. At such a crucial moment, if we can bring the final prophecy back to the church, we will be rewarded far more generously than before," the man with the trident spoke. "Please think about it carefully. This is the final prophecy of the gods. If we can obtain the details of this prophecy, our names will go down in history." Not only that, the green-cloaked girl continued. "The final prophecy of the gods will surely contain the deepest secrets. After we return, many of the higher-ups will personally receive us. We can also use this chance to reveal ourselves and establish a relationship with the true bigwigs of the church." As the few of them spoke, their faces were filled with excitement. This was an unprecedented opportunity. Even the leaders of the church who sent them here didn't know about such a change. Anna looked at their expressions and knew that she couldn't convince them. She couldn't help but sigh in disappointment. Why are these people still floating on the surface? Could it be that they didn't understand that their own strength was the deciding factor? Instead of honing his own abilities, he thought of using all sorts of methods to fight for fame and fortune. In terms of becoming stronger, he had already fallen behind. If a person possessed godlike power, then all external fame and benefits would naturally be offered to him without the need to pursue them. Strength was the root of everything. Unfortunately, things had already come to this. She alone could not change everyone's decision. The woman with her eyes closed turned to Anna and smiled apologetically. Anna shook her head slightly, indicating that it was fine. Among these people, she had only met this woman once, so she could be considered familiar. She was a nun from the Shrine of Destiny. She had a gentle personality and was extremely polite. Anna had a good impression of this little girl. But now, the two of them couldn't change everyone's opinion. Under such circumstances, he could only cooperate with the believers of the other gods, hoping that they could complete the test as soon as possible. The seven of them once again placed their hands on the stone book and injected their energy into it. A dignified and solemn voice sounded from the book of stone. Power is the root of everything. Anna raised her eyebrows in surprise. This was exactly the same as what she was thinking. The voice continued. The final test of the gods must be a test of strength. Your strength has been evaluated. The corresponding test shall begin. Please defeat the creations of the gods and activate the final prophecy. Boom. The entire hall trembled once more. Challengers, please enter the abyss and accept the test, the stone book spoke. Look, the blond man called out. Everyone turned to look. At the other end of the hall, a deep dark cave appeared out of nowhere. This cave was like the maw of a giant beast, filled with indescribable ferocity. Although they couldn't see clearly, they could faintly make out something large moving in the dark cave. That was a creation of the gods. That was a creation of the gods. That was a creation of the gods. The blond man thought for a bit and said, Among us, the one with the most confidence in facing the unknown is the believer of the god of fate. How about you go first? He looked at the girl with her eyes closed. The others immediately followed up and loudly agreed. Me? After a bit of hesitation, the girl mustered her courage and said, All right, I'll go take a look. Anna stopped her. She glared at the blond man. She's only an expert in prophecy and spying. She's not suited for sudden combat. You are all melee professions. You should go first. The blond man scowled and was about to say something. The girl with her eyes closed smiled and lightly pushed Anna's hand away. It's fine. If there's any danger, I'll just give up and come out to explain the situation inside. She gripped the pendant on her neck, and with a flash, she had already entered the dark cave. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She looked at the people around her and angrily said, We clearly said to give up. You were the ones who insisted on completing the test, but now you're hiding in the back. Is that even acceptable? That's not it, the man with the trident replied. She's only going to scout. Leave the real fighting to us, the blond man also explained. Among the seven of us, she's the strongest, so she'll only be tasked with scouting this time. The other important matters will be handled by us. Indeed, that's right. It's only right that everyone has their own roles. The woman with the emerald green cloak, the man with the frost gauntlet, as well as the tall man with wings all agreed. Facing everyone's unanimous agreement, Anna couldn't find any words to refute. She wasn't a person who was good with words either. All of a sudden, a horrifying scream resounded from inside the dark cave. Ah! Following the scream of pain, an intense gust of wind filled with blood rushed out from the dark cave. The intense wind carried an unparalleled ferocious presence as it blew towards everyone. This is, the winged man muttered as he subconsciously took a step back. Such a powerful presence was immediately sensed by everyone. This level of power was more than just a bit stronger than the rest of them. Faint sounds of crying and struggling could be heard from inside the dark cave. Everyone's expressions changed. The blond man said, Not good. The monster inside is too strong. With my strength, the most I can do is take it down with me. That's not worth it. I can't use my own life in exchange for a prophecy. He shook his head. The man with the trident took a step back and said, It seems the situation this time is far more dangerous than we expected. I suggest we give up and return to ask for reinforcements. That is a wise choice, I agree. The woman with the emerald green cloak agreed. All of a sudden, A female voice filled with anger and killing intent resounded throughout the entire palace. "You bastards!" Anna loudly berated them. She looked at the stone book and quickly asked, "Is she still alive?" "She's still breathing, but she's about to die," the stone book replied. Anna's expression became pale and worriedly asked, "That means she's already been eliminated. Can I go in right now?" "You can." As soon as the stone book said "you can," Anna had already rushed into the dark cave. While still in the air, she had already begun to chant an incantation. "Death, I am your servant. The life and death of living beings shall be decided by me." Her voice was filled with nervousness and anxiety, bordering on a roar. The death spell was completed. Boom! Her black hair fluttered in the wind. A black light as deep as the sea emanated from Anna's body and filled the entire palace. The long-handled scythe in her hand exuded a thick and heavy darkness. The soundless black flames on the blade gave off a blinding glow. Anna exerted her full power without hesitation. In a split second, all the supernatural phenomena disappeared. She had rushed into the dark cave. The palace slowly became silent. The remaining 5 people looked at each other, speechless for a moment. A few moments later, the woman with the emerald green cloak couldn't hold herself back anymore and spoke. "I suggest that we cooperate wholeheartedly." "What do you mean?" the blonde man asked. "Don't tell me you didn't feel it. That woman from the divine palace of death just now held killing intent towards us." The woman shook her head. "I can tell that she isn't someone who follows the rules, and the power she exerted was too terrifying if she truly attacked. I don't think any of you would be able to stop her silence." After a while, the few of them expressed their opinions. "Although we aren't afraid of her, there is always more strength in numbers," the man with the trident said. "That's right. Let us unite," the winged man agreed. The blonde man thought for a bit, then concluded, "We should establish a good relationship of cooperation, regardless of the difficult situation or the betrayal of the other holy churches." Chapter 735. Anna rushed into the dark tunnel. As she was about to swing her black flame scythe to attack, she suddenly froze. The little girl from the Holy Church of Fate was still standing there with her eyes closed. "Big sis Anna, you seem a bit surprised?" the little girl giggled. Beside her, a monstrous and ferocious aura emanated from the body of a colossus. It was a giant bear that exuded a gloomy mist. The oppressive aura that everyone had felt outside the dark den just now had come from it. The gloomy giant bear was as tall as a 5-story building. Even lying on the ground, it was still as tall as a 2-story building. Yet such a monster was obediently lying next to the little girl. When the little girl stroked the giant bear, it squinted its eyes and appeared satisfied. Gradually, the giant bear seemed to fall asleep. "Did you design all of this?" "No. No matter how strong you are, you can't just casually set up a space in the Holy Church of the 7 Gods." Anna thought about it. "I knew Big Sis Anna was different from those pieces of trash," the little girl happily said. "Not only are you beautiful, you're also strong, and you even dare to come in and save me." She waved her hand. A book with a gray cover appeared in her hand. "This is the true book of prophecy," the little girl said. She explained, "In truth, even the gods have their own destinies, and the prophecies of the gods must be triggered by the power of destiny. That's why, from the past until now, every prophecy of the gods has always been secretly conducted by someone from the Holy Church of Fate." "Ah, then why didn't you say so earlier?" Anna was confused. The gods understand the nature of living beings. They knew that if we were to do everything ourselves, it would cause the other 6 holy churches to suspect and covet us, which would instead lead to the destruction of our Holy Church of Fate. For the alliance of the 7 holy churches that has always been united, this would be the biggest unsettling factor. That's why the 7 gods had set up a few things in advance to help our Holy Church of Fate conceal this. The reason why I'm not going to keep a secret today is because this is indeed the last prophecy. I don't mind telling Big Sis Anna the truth." Anna looked at her from top to bottom, then at the giant bear next to her, and sighed in relief. "If I knew you were this strong, I wouldn't have been so angry and nervous just now, really," she complained. The little girl revealed, an embarrassed expression. She waved her hand, and the darkness in front of them faded away, revealing the scene outside. At this time, the few people outside were discussing about forming an alliance. Seeing Anna raise her eyebrows again, the little girl advised, "Sister Anna, you don't have to care about them at all." "Why?" "Big sis Anna, you have to understand, not everyone is as talented as you are, and there aren't many people like you who have a deity servant protecting them as soon as they appear in the strife zones. Anna, people like you are rare. Mediocre people are the mainstream in this world. They need to use all kinds of methods to survive and help themselves become stronger. But when fate truly tests them, most of the mediocre people will be finished. So don't be angry, sister." Anna looked at the little girl's sincere expression, and the anger in her heart gradually subsided. "All right, since you have such great power, then hurry up and take the test. The sooner we settle this matter, the sooner we can return," she said. "As you wish," the little girl replied. She patted the bear's shoulder, looked up, and loudly declared, "Baby, time to work." The bear's ears twitched a bit, then opened its eyes and let out a resounding roar. Roar! It pounced forward, and its huge body rushed out of the dark cave like a bolt of lightning. Everything happened so quickly that the people outside couldn't even react in time. The blond man was caught by the bear, stuffed into its mouth, and swallowed after a few bites. The bear raised both paws and slammed them on the floor of the hall. The other people who tried to retaliate were jolted so hard that they couldn't move. The bear's body flashed several times and killed all 5 of them in just a few breaths worth of time. It quickly devoured the 5 corpses, then turned back into fog and slowly disappeared into the hall. The little girl explained to Anna, "It can't be helped. When I came in just now, I found that the power left behind by the 7 gods was already very weak, so for safety's sake, I wanted to replenish some fresh soul points first before activating the prophecy of the 7 gods. I'll need around 3 fresh souls. 5 shouldn't be a problem. After all, their mediocrity has disappeared and turned into pure power for me to use. But if they're all dead, wouldn't the test of the gods have failed?" Anna asked. "Test? You've passed the test," the little girl smiled and said. "Big sis Anna, you've passed the test." Anna froze, then asked in confusion, "Wasn't the final test related to power?" "I didn't do anything at all." The little girl's expression became serious and spoke with a serious expression. "There are many kinds of power in this world. Courage is a kind of power, wisdom is also a kind of power, and personal strength is the direct manifestation of power, but to the gods, these powers are weak and not worth mentioning. The remnant wills of the 7 gods told me that before they reveal the final prophecy, they needed to find a believer who had compassion for living beings and was willing to fight for this compassion. Big sis Anna, just now, you were the only one who stood up and saved me. And so, you've passed." The little girl raised the book of prophecy in front of Anna. "Big sis, please put your hand on the book," she said. A complicated look appeared in Anna's eyes as she self-deprecatingly said, "I only wanted to stay in the divine church to train my skills. I didn't even want to come here. And yet this is the result." The little girl tilted her head. "That's how fate usually works." Hearing that, Anna couldn't help but sigh. She silently stared at the book of prophecy. Within her senses, there were no signs of death. On the contrary, there was an endless divine presence emanating from a book. This divine presence had locked onto her, waiting for her to activate it. Anna put her hand on the cover of the book. "Tell me your name," Anna suddenly said. "Big sis, I'm Kaer." The little girl smiled brightly. "Kaer? Yes, I'm Su Kaer." Anna froze. This name sounds a bit similar to someone else. Su Kaer also put her hand on the book of prophecy and appeared pleased. "I have something private to tell you. But for now, let us witness the final decision left behind by the 7 gods." She silently chanted an incantation. The gray book of prophecy scattered into a gloomy fog that enveloped the 2 of them. Boom! All the darkness disappeared. The 2 of them once again appeared in the palace. The pillars collapsed one by one. The floorboards crumbled. The entire palace of the 7 gods began to collapse. Endless divine presence filled the void of space. It's about to begin. Chapter 736. The entire temple of the seven gods quickly crumbled. Everything turned into tiny grains of quicksand, and in the blink of an eye, turned into a hazy fog. A large amount of fog had enveloped the center of the strife zones. This scene was hidden for the time being, and no one noticed it. Anna and Suku Air stood in the fog, silently waiting. What prophecy will it be? Anna couldn't help but ask. I'm also very interested. After all, normal people wouldn't be able to witness such a scene with their own eyes, the little girl, Suku Air, said. They did not have to wait long. At first, there was nothing in the surroundings, but gradually, a gray mist rose up and formed a human figure. The humanoid figure looked like an empty shell, a mold. After absorbing all the gray mist, the empty human shell began to emit a blinding light. Then, it began to make a loud, rumbling sound. What we predicted has happened. The destruction outside the strife zones is descending. It's impossible to fight against it with the power of believers alone. The figure of light opened one hand and pointed it towards the sky. What is it doing? Isn't it going to say a prophecy? Anna quickly asked. Suku Air also quickly replied. I don't know what happened either. Perhaps it was because the calamity was about to descend, so the divinities wanted to activate some sort of prearranged measure. In the next moment, both of them were shocked. The figure of light spoke again. We have to resolve this calamity, otherwise the final 900 million world layers won't be able to stop it. According to our previous arrangements, prepare to summon the seven gods back. An even more blinding ray of light shot out from the figure of light's hand, piercing through the darkness of space and into the distance. This beam of light was filled with holiness, dignity, solemnity, and silence. Even though Anna and Suku Air had been through a lot, they couldn't help but want to kneel in front of this light. Anna held her breath and said in a low voice, You guessed it right. God had indeed arranged the means in advance. Suku Air was in a daze, but I didn't know the seven deities would return. Isn't that a good thing? Divinities can lead all living beings to fight against the calamity, Anna said doubtfully. No, in our records, Suku Air subconsciously followed up, then realized that she had said too much. She immediately shut her mouth. Come back to me. The figure of light sighed deeply. The blinding light pierced through the boundless void of space and continued for a few dozen seconds. But other than this magnificent pillar of light, nothing else happened. No divinities came. After a while, the figure of light lowered its hand. The pillar of light that reached the heavens immediately disappeared. The figure of light disappeared without a trace. It descended and silently hovered in front of Anna and Suku Air. The two of them simultaneously bowed to greet. Both of them. And divinity of God. Suku Air performed the divine rite of fate, while Anna performed the divine rite of death according to the teachings. This was the way a believer should greet a deity. The God of too much time has passed. The only people who can stand before me are the believers of fate and death. God of it. You have attempted to awaken the gods and started the final era of living beings. The seven gods have bestowed upon you the gift of summoning the gods, the figure of light replied. One had a pure white cover, while the other had a black cover. The pure white cover book flew in front of Suku Air and landed in her hand. The black cover book landed in Anna's hand. The figure of light spoke. These are the Book of Divinity and the Book of Divinity. I hope that you will serve them as you would your God, respect them, love them, and learn the knowledge of the divinities from them. Suku Air pursed her lips, bowed again, and said nothing. Anna couldn't help but ask, where are the seven divinities? Why haven't they appeared? Suku Air pulled her closer and whispered, It is a manifestation of the laws, manifested through divine power. It might not answer you, sure enough. The figure of light stopped. After that, it spoke with an unprecedentedly sorrowful tone. The seven divinities did not respond to this call very clearly. The seven divinities are dead at this moment when the glory of the old gods is at its darkest. Evil is about to retaliate, and now I shall open the final valve. This is the battle of vengeance that the seven divinities have prepared for their deaths. Saying so, the figure of light took to the sky again. It reached its hand into the void of space. Intense light erupted from the figure of light's body. At once, the entire 200 million world layers of the strife zones sensed its divinity. The figure of light appeared in the sky in front of every living being in every world, traveling through 200 million world layers and appearing in front of billions of living beings at the same time. This was already close to the power of a god. Not to mention the 7 divine powers that were constantly changing around the figure of light. Everyone in the countless worlds knelt down and worshipped it. The figure of light silently stared at the void of space, as if it was observing every living being in the 200 million world layers. It suddenly spoke. Billions of living beings, listen carefully. The 7 divinities are dead. The final era of living beings is descending from this moment onwards. The God order and life order shall be completely destroyed. Let's rewind time for a bit. When Anna had just arrived at the palace of the 7 divinities, also in the strife zones, the novice world, on top of a steep mountain. Wave after wave of chilling sword-infused wind swept through the air, climbing up the steep mountain to the top of the city wall, then all the way to the sky. Gu Qingshan was wearing a full suit of black armor with a golden mask on her face, standing at the edge of the city wall and silently stared down below. The Chaoyin sword and 6 Paths Great Mountain sword were flying through the black demon goats, occasionally unleashing powerful secret arts. In just a few moments, the 2 flying swords had already killed their way through the entire black demon goat's flock. Taking advantage of the time the flying swords took to return, a group of the strongest black demon goats climbed up the city wall. Gu Qingshan raised her bow and pulled the bowstring. Sha! A single arrow flew out, pierced through the eye of a black demon goat, and pierced deep into its skull. Without even being able to scream, the black demon goat lost its life. Archery, sharpshooter. This was an unpopular archery skill that Gu Qingshan found in both Shenwu World and the Suspended World, so she had already mastered it and understood it well. Taking this chance, the other black demon goats sped up and leapt up, attempting to reach the top of the city wall. Gu Qingshan quickly drew another arrow. Sha 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 sha. Rapid fire. Pierce. Haste. The arrows turned into blurred images and nailed the black demon goats back to the ground. In the sky, the 6 Paths Great Mountain sword turned back into Shanu, wielding the Chaoyin sword. In a split second, Shanu disappeared without a trace. She directly appeared on the city wall, standing next to Gu Qingshan. Divine skill, ground shrink. Gongzi, I was a bit too fast just now, so I couldn't turn back, Shanu apologetically said. It's fine, it's been a long time since you've had a good fight. Seeing some blood is a good thing. Gu Qingshan didn't mind at all. He put his bow away. We should go now, he said. Shanu happily asked, Can we go now? I can sense an order being loaded. Gu Qingshan nodded. In his retina, a green UI that exuded the presence of life was slowly forming. Lines of glowing text appeared on the UI. Congratulations, you've drawn the attention of this order. Following this order will take you through 3,600 world layers to reach the place where the life order first evolved. Are you willing to carry this order and follow this order there? The order finally asked. Gu Qingshan replied, I am. Following his words, a green screen of light enveloped him and lightly flashed. Gu Qingshan disappeared from the first world. He was covered in a layer of green light as he traveled through the space vortex and countless worlds. Compared to the scattered worlds, the void of the strife zones had a lot of strange and unusual creatures. All sorts of void monsters had taken over their own territories, taking over the paths leading to various worlds. Gu Qingshan saw with his own eyes a monster that was several times larger than the Spire Keeper Association's sailboat, leisurely flying through the void. While flying, the monster reached out all 6 of its arms, randomly grabbing monsters and flying vehicles that couldn't escape in time and stuff them into its mouth. While flying, Gu Qingshan sensed the monster's presence. It seems to be several times stronger than me. She then saw an obviously high-tech spaceship that was quickly flying through the void, but was suddenly bitten and swallowed by another monster. That monster appeared very happy, because from its appearance, it was also made entirely of metal, but it looked a bit like a spider. It was most likely specialized in devouring products of this type of technological civilization. Gu Qingshan silently watched and couldn't help but sigh. These void monsters treat living beings that travel between worlds as food, and the space vortex is their hunting ground. Fortunately, I have the Life Order's concealment. Otherwise, as a newbie, I wouldn't be able to travel between the worlds of the strife zones at all. At some point, Gu Qingshan suddenly felt a sudden impulse. An indescribable sense of danger arose. This was the same feeling she had right before her death. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but reach her hand out. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat. How is this possible? I'm clearly following the Life Order to another world. Why would I suddenly sense spirit sense now? Before he could think about it, a line of red text appeared in front of his retina. This was an emergency notification from the War God UI. Attention, the Life Order is currently collapsing. Gu Qingshan opened his eyes wide. Before he could ask anything, a loud explosion resounded in his ears. Boom! The green glow around his body abruptly disappeared. Gu Qingshan appeared in the space vortex. The monsters immediately noticed him. Oh no! Gu Qingshan silently exclaimed. At this moment, he completely understood. The first karmic adversity of Tribulation Realm had arrived. When he was about to react, he saw that none of the monsters attacked him. Gu Qingshan was surprised. All of a sudden, he noticed that a figure of light had appeared in front of each monster. Each monster was crawling on the ground, trembling. A figure of light had also appeared in front of him. This figure of light possessed unparalleled divinity. Right after that, the figure of light spoke. Billions of living beings. Listen carefully, the divinities are dead. The final era of living beings is descending from this moment onwards. The Life Order and Demigod Order shall be completely destroyed. The power that created the two orders of divinity, as well as the power gathered by the two orders, shall all belong to me. With this power, the seven divinities of the age of old shall open a new path of resistance against evil for everyone. This is the vengeance of the seven divinities, as well as your final chance. This is Chapter 737. The Strife Zones. The powerful entities of the 200 million world layers were all looking at the figure of light in front of them, full of desire, unwilling to look away. At their level, they could already see the essence of the laws of the world from the figure of light's body. Just by observing the figure of light like this, they were able to gain supreme experience and understanding. Not to mention, the figure of light had mentioned the path to godhood. Some people couldn't hold back their excitement and loudly asked, "How do I become a god?" The figure of light opened his palm. Two clusters of light were dancing in the air above his palm. One was a ball of holy white light, and the other was a ball of green light. Facing the living beings of the 200 million world layers, the figure of light began to speak. Before the seven gods left, they hid their infinite divine power within the demi-order and life order, and now, the two orders as well as the power they gathered have all been absorbed by me. With this power, I shall ignite the tree of divinity of the seven holy churches. Saying so, the figure of light lightly raised his hand. The light of holy and the light of life fused together, turning into seven different colors of light that flew into the boundless void of space. At the same time, the images of the seven worlds appeared in front of everyone. The bright green light fell into the sound tree world. The bright blue light fell into the deep sea star wheel. The gray fog fell into the fog isle of the sea of death. The holy white light fell into the city of angels. The dark purple light fell into the abyss of divine war. The glorious golden light fell into the spire of civilization. The dark waterfall fell into the wilderness of death. The seven lights flew at an extreme speed and quickly landed in the seven holy churches of the seven worlds. An endless gust of wind rose from the divine palaces of the seven gods to the sky. The originally solemn and sacred holy churches slowly began to give off holy light. At this point, the figure of light's voice resounded again. From this day onwards, all living beings of the 200 million world layers may worship God. If a living being truly believes in God, they may enter one of the 7 holy churches. Becoming a believer of God shall grant you a completely new qualification. Believers shall light their own tree of divinity within the holy church of the 7 gods with their tree of divinity. Believers shall slowly obtain the God's divine gift of combat, improving themselves in all aspects until they finally become a demigod that looks down on all living beings. When someone completely ignites their tree of divinity and becomes a demigod, they will learn that secret. The secret of becoming a true god from a demigod. He will eventually become a god. The figure of light slowly spoke. Its words were so shocking that no one in the 200 million world layers dared to say anything. The figure of light finally spoke. Faith comes from the true desire and devotion of the heart. The gods will not accept a wavering heart. So for those who are not yet believers, you only have 3 minutes to decide which god you wish to worship. After 3 minutes, if you haven't chosen the god you believe in, then you will forever lose the right to become a believer. You will not be able to light your own tree of divinity. The path to godhood will forever be closed to you. Furthermore, every believer will receive a unique reward. Each believer will be able to ask me a single question, but within the 200 million world layers of the strife zones, the 7 gods have established a rule that no one is allowed to tell anyone their question or answer. Otherwise, they will be cursed to death by the 7 gods. Now, you can choose the god you want to worship. Keep in mind, you only have 3 minutes. After saying so, the figure of light went silent. Behind it, the faint image of the 7 holy churches never faded away. The figure of light and the 7 holy churches silently hovered in front of every living being, waiting for their choice. Ignite the tree of divinity. Become a demigod. Obtain the secret of godhood. Obtain the answer to the law of the gods. Any one of these things was already an incredible thing, enough to attract the interest of any powerhouse. And now, all 4 of them were being displayed in front of the countless living beings of the 200 million world layers. Every living being was nervously making their choice. Suko Air and Anna stood in the void of space, watching all of this. We're already believers. Can we still obtain your answer? Suko Air asked. The figure of light replied, all believers have the right to do so. I will answer 1 question for each of you. But keep in mind, the 200 million world layers are filled with the law and curse of the 7 gods. You must not reveal your answer, otherwise you will also die. Understood, understood, the 2 girls nodded. The figure of light continued. If you're afraid of others hearing your question, just ask it in your mind. I will answer it. The 2 girls quickly thought about it. The manifestation of the law of the gods, personally answering the questions of their believers. What questions do I have that I have to ask? The novice world. That's great. I won't be trapped here anymore. I'll choose the Holy Church of Fate, a newcomer loudly declared. The figure of light hovering in front of him spoke. The Holy Church of Fate, is that your choice? Yes, I choose the Holy Church of Fate. The newcomer gritted his teeth. The figure of light spoke. From now on, you are a believer of the God of Fate. You must travel from here to the Isle of Fog, then reach the Isle of Fate where the Holy Church of Fate is located. Only then can you enter the Holy Church and borrow its power to awaken your tree of divinity, the newcomer doubtfully asked. Is it that troublesome? The figure of light didn't say anything else. Its voice directly resounded in the newcomer's mind. Indeed, this is a necessary first step. This step is called the pilgrimage, remember. Although this answer is simple, you cannot tell anyone else saying so. The figure of light disappeared in front of him. The newcomer was stunned for a while before muttering, something's not right. A while later, the newcomer suddenly realized and loudly called out, wait, you should have answered a question of mine before you left. Next to him, his companion silently looked at him and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. It already answered one of your questions, idiot. His companion retracted his thoughts and told the figure of light in front of him, Venerable One, I choose to serve the god of life. Is that your final decision? The figure of light in front of him asked. Yes, from now on, you are a believer of the god of life. You must travel from here to the sound tree realm, then reach the great tree where the holy church of life is located in order to borrow the power of the holy church to awaken your tree of divinity. I understand, Venerable One. Can I ask you a question now? You may. What I want to ask is 3 minutes. 200 million world layers. Among the infinite worlds, almost every divinity was hesitating, making a choice, and asking a question. In a deep underground cavern, various monsters hidden in the darkness were no longer able to hide their ferocious figures, because in front of each of them, there was also a figure of light. These monsters were all intelligent, so they were also making their own choices and considerations. Deep inside the cave, a single human man stood in the only empty space. He wore a black leather jacket, a pair of black gloves, a dagger in each hand, and a dark card in his mouth. From the looks of it, he seemed to have gone through a lot of things and suffered a lot. Next to him was a giant lizard covered in green armor. Littling How, I didn't think you'd receive such a chance just by coming here for a trial, the lizard sighed emotionally. The man put his dagger away, picked up the card in his mouth, and solemnly put it into his pocket. Aha, divinity? That's something I've never heard of before, but which holy church should I choose that suits my growth? Jang Young-ho slowly asked. While he was confused, the figure of light in front of him gave off a ray of light that enveloped him. Hey, what are you doing? I still haven't chosen a divinity to believe in. Jang Young-ho asked. As he asked, the ray of light that enveloped him had already retracted. The figure of light's voice resounded in his mind. You are an assassin-type card user. The two most suitable choices are the Holy Church of Death and the Holy Church of Mysteries. Jang Young-ho was surprised. So the figure of light had already answered his question. Chapter 738. I've seen too much death. Then I'll choose the Holy Church of Mysteries, Jang Young-ho replied. The figure of light spoke. From now on, you are a follower of the God of Mysteries. You must travel from here to the abyss of divine war, then reach the Holy Church of Mysteries cave to borrow the power of the Holy Church to awaken your tree of divinity. Saying so, the figure of light disappeared. Jang Young-ho excitedly said, Who would have thought I'd run into such a good thing? The chance to become a god is right in front of me. Seems like I'll have to hurry up and awaken that tree of divinity. Once I become a god, I'll truly be the god of killers, huh? While he was in high spirits, he suddenly noticed that something wasn't right around him. Turning around, he saw that all the beasts and monsters in the cave had completely ignored the figure of light in front of them and were staring straight at him. Their eyes were full of surprise, confusion, doubt, respect, and various other emotions. Jang Young-ho was completely stunned. He took a step back and smiled. Big shots. Why are you all looking at me like that? I've been diligently serving you ever since I arrived. Did I do something wrong? The green lizard stared closely at Jang Young-ho and spoke in a low voice. No, it's mainly because everyone was so surprised that they wanted to look at you a bit more, that's right. After all, we won't be able to see you for a very long time, another black leopard chimed in. Why not? Jang Young-ho asked in confusion. Because this world of ours is located in the upper northern region of the strife zones. It's basically the highest world in the northern region, a hyena patiently explained. Another chameleon followed up, and the abyss of divine war. This world is located in the southern region of the strife zones, the publicly acknowledged world at the very bottom of the strife zones, that's why. You'll have to travel across the entire strife zones, a total of 200 million world layers, to reach the abyss of divine war, 20 million world layers. Jang Young-ho froze. The beasts didn't let him off the hook and continued to explain. Although there are many superdimensional worlds, we are all beasts. We don't have any currency to exchange for a superdimensional pass. How, with your strength, you won't even be able to enter the chaotic void outside our world. Because the monsters in the void turbulence are not to be trifled with. You probably won't even be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. TSK, 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 there are 200 million worlds. I'm afraid you'll have to travel for a very, very long time. Littling How. As the beasts talked, they heard a plop. Jang Young-ho's legs gave way, and he fell to his knees. When the beasts saw the distress on Jang Young-ho's face, they felt a little sympathetic. They did not continue, but they all started to move. Indeed, they had also chosen their own paths and were heading towards their respective holy churches. It wasn't just this world. All living beings in the billions of worlds were also making preparations to head towards the 7 holy churches. Only in the shrine could the corresponding tree of divinity be activated. That was the path to becoming a demigod. Without a sound, the largest pilgrimage in the history of the Strife Zones had begun. That day would be known as the beginning of the Age of Pilgrimage. A certain world layer, in a dazzling and magnificent place. This was a place where the crystallization of countless civilizations was gathered. The entire world was highly developed, with countless inventions and creations. Even the difficult problem of eternal life was about to be solved. The only problem was that in the current of history, where the apocalypse was approaching, no one seemed to be able to live forever. This world was the world of the spire of civilization. Numerous towers of various sizes stood here, each of them the crystallization and accumulation of a certain type of knowledge. One of the 7 holy churches, the Holy Church of Knowledge, was located here. At this time, in the most luxurious hotel in the world, a young ruler who had just arrived was hesitating and weighing her options. A figure of light was also silently hovering in front of her. I was supposed to come here to strengthen myself, as well as do business with the Holy Church of Knowledge. Why did such a thing happen? She sighed. Your Majesty, this is the best chance. Do you want to join our Holy Church? A bishop of the Holy Church asked. No, we're here to do business. If I join, what about business? The young ruler replied. If you join our Holy Church, you will have the chance to become a demigod, or even a true god. Another bishop sincerely persuaded her. This was the most sincere moment of his life. Even when he was praying to God, he wasn't this sincere. After all, as long as he could convince this empress to join the Holy Church of Knowledge, he might even have a chance to become the next pope. Forget it, I have my own path to walk. Not to mention, our race has never been afraid of any difficulties, and we don't need to become existences like God, the young empress replied. Saying so, she suddenly reached her hand into the void of space. A sparkling gem appeared in her hand. HM, a high-grade elemental gem. Do you want this? The empress asked. The 2 bishops carefully held their breaths and carefully observed the gem. An elemental gem contains the power of the essence of the elements. A single piece the size of a fingernail can provide enough energy to run an entire city for about a year. The gem in the emperor's hand is almost as big as a fist, if we can buy it. The 2 of them felt their hearts beating faster and couldn't help but gulp nervously. Just as they were about to speak, a woman clad in battle armor spoke first. The woman said, "Don't sell this. Our world migration device will require this gem. As long as we have it, we won't need to change the energy source of the super large-scale concealment spellcaster every day for a short period of time." Whoa, that's quite convenient. Then I won't sell it, the empress replied. She tossed the fist-sized gem to the woman and told her, Ilya, I'll leave it to you to worry about traveling. After all, even though I've awakened my ability, I'm still not strong enough. If something goes wrong while traveling between worlds, my innate ability will only be able to save you alone. The others will only be able to die to the void monsters. Understood? Your Majesty Lola, I will carefully prepare everything, Ilya replied. Lola nodded in satisfaction. She then turned to the 2 bishops of the Holy Church of Knowledge and spoke apologetically. I'm sorry, but this thing probably can't be sold. How about? She reached her hand out again and touched the void of space. What a coincidence. Laura had a look of surprise on her face as she pulled out another item from the void of space. It was another elemental gem, but this one was almost twice as big as the one before. The 2 bishops' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Outside the novice world, the space vortex, Gu Qingshan looked at the figure of light in front of her. then at the countless void monsters around her. "Will becoming a believer help me resolve my current problem?" he asked. Around him, the void monsters were also dealing with the figure of light. But their problem will probably be resolved very soon. At that time, it'll be dangerous. The figure of light stayed silent and didn't answer Gu Qingshan's question. "Seems like it won't work," Gu Qingshan sighed. The figure of light replied, "Only by becoming a believer will you be able to receive my answer. You're nothing but the manifestation of the laws. Why are you so stubborn? Can't you just answer a small question of mine?" "All right, I'll be Hitchum. How about I become a believer of the Holy Church of Life?" Gu Qingshan replied. The figure of light then continued, "From now on, you are a believer of the God of Life. You must travel from here to the Sound Tree world, then reach the Great Tree where the Holy Church of Life is located. Only then can you borrow the power of the Holy Church to awaken your tree of divinity." Gu Qingshan nodded. "Now that I'm a believer of God, please tell me, as a believer of God, how can I safely travel through the void?" The figure of light replied, "Without the use of various vehicles and tools to conceal yourself, there is no way to safely travel through the space vortex of strife zones. Although the void monsters around you aren't particularly strong, there are always some unique space vortexes that contain monsters that far surpass the strength of living beings. Some of these monsters aren't commonly seen, but their power is comparable to a demigod, or even stronger." Hearing that, Gu Qingshan pondered. "In other words, it's very easy for me to die if I'm exposed to the space vortex like this." "Your understanding of the answer is correct. Please guarantee that you won't tell anyone else," the figure of light replied. As it was about to leave, the man in front of it sighed and muttered in a low voice, "If I join the Holy Church, I won't even be able to travel freely. Divinities are truly weak." The man lightly tapped his forehead and decided, "If that's the case, I'll leave the Holy Church right now." He abruptly looked up at the figure of light. "Right? I remember that there are only two punishments for leaving a holy church. The first is to never join a church again, and the second is to be despised by the gods, correct?" The figure of light hesitated for a long while before answering. "Normally, I can only answer one of your questions, but since you want to leave as soon as you joined, this question is related to faith, so I have to tell you yes. If you leave the church, you will not be able to join a church for the rest of your life. You will also be despised by the seven gods, and after your death, your soul will only be able to wander the endless void without a place to go after saying so." The figure of light stared closely at the man in front of him. The man said happily, "Then I'll quit." "Aren't you afraid of being despised by the seven gods?" the figure of light asked. Gu Qingshan squinted her eyes. "Despised by the seven gods? Aren't they already dead? Let's talk about that after they come back to life." Chapter 739. In the end, the figure of light was only a manifestation of the laws, so it could only act according to the laws. But in the end, it didn't say anything and simply disappeared in front of Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan silently thought about what happened just now. The gods had already set up the forbidden secrets of the law, curse, in the 200 million world layers. Could they have set up other curses as well? Going back on faith isn't a big deal, but it's a normal matter of the church that's usually handled by the higher-ups of the church. The gods rarely get involved. Gu Qingshan decided to give a try on the spot. But nothing happened. That's understandable. If they weren't facing certain death, why would the gods tell the secrets of godhood to living beings? At such a crucial moment, it was already quite a feat for them to be able to motivate all living beings in the 200 million world layers. So how could they have the time to care about the church's business? Then what should I do now? Gu Qingshan's thoughts turned. 9 billion world layers had already been destroyed. Facing such a situation, the only thing the gods could do was run or die. This proves one thing. Although becoming a god can make one stronger, it's completely useless in front of the apocalypse. Not to mention, there's no telling if there's a trap or not. Gu Qingshan wasn't going to step into it. He glanced around. More and more figures of light were disappearing into thin air. The monsters that had taken over the space vortex were also beginning to act. According to the figure of light, the monsters around here weren't that strong. There were monsters that were even stronger than demigods in the void. But even these monsters in front of him weren't something that Gu Qing Shan could win against. In just a few breaths worth of time, there would be monsters that didn't mind how small Gu Qing Shan was and would try to eat him up. There's no time to waste. Gu Qing Shan sighed and casually caught a small rock that was flying in front of him. There were too many meaningless things in the space vortex. It wasn't just small rocks. There were all sorts of strange and unusual things. Gu Qing Shan held the rock and activated mystery of all beings equal. He disappeared into thin air. As the rock fell, it was once again wrapped up by the void wind and flew in an unknown direction. In the void turbulence, those powerful monsters wouldn't care about such a fingernail-sized rock. They chose the temple they wanted to go to and hurried on their way. At the same time, more and more flying vehicles appeared in the void turbulence. The vast and boundless void gradually became lively. Almost everyone joined the journey, rushing towards the various shrines. This was the first day of the age of pilgrimage. The monsters were no longer entrenched in the same place. Instead, they hunted nearby to replenish their energy as they hurried on their way. Some powerful monsters were rampaging through the void turbulence, knocking out some invisible flying vehicles and devouring them. But it was not always smooth sailing. Many people would emerge from the flying vehicles and fight the monsters with all their might. Sometimes the monsters would be injured and flee. Sometimes the creatures on the flying vehicles couldn't resist the monsters' attacks and were all eaten by the monsters. In order to escape, some flying vehicles would even knock out other invisible spaceships. This way, those spaceships would have no choice but to face the attacks of the void monsters. They had to fight back. On the various paths of the space vortex, battles quickly erupted one after another. Battles were occurring more and more frequently. The screams of monsters, the explosions of spells, the screams and roars of living beings. From this day onwards, the space vortex would no longer be as peaceful as it was before and would only become more and more lively. Because every living being was madly rushing on their way. Everyone wanted to light their tree of divinity as soon as possible and step onto the path of demigod. The great age of pilgrimage had arrived. Gu Qing Shan crouched on top of a small rock and witnessed everything with his own eyes. He turned into a tiny meltwater ant, clinging onto the edge of the rock and stuck to its surface. The meltwater ant was an extremely small ant that liked to eat sand. This species was one of the specimens Gu Qing Shan found in the suspended world. Before fighting Rakshasa, he had collected the hair and fur of every living being on Guangyang Sek's floating island and turned into this ant in battle. This tiny ant rode on the broken rocks and safely passed through one battlefield after another, shuttling through the space turbulence. After flying for a while, the meltwater ant jumped up and landed on a piece of rag. The rock was falling too quickly, and there was no way to control it. Compared to it, the rag's speed was much slower. The meltwater ant held onto the rag tightly and looked around. It was carefully observing its surroundings, but was also quickly thinking about its current situation. At a certain point, the meltwater ant suddenly moved its antennae. Not far away, it saw a broken flying vehicle quietly floating there. The battle seemed to have ended. From the looks of the flying vehicle, it was the monster that won in the end and devoured all the living beings on it. If nothing unexpected happened, this flying vehicle would continue to drift through the space vortex. But in the meltwater ant's vision, this broken flying vehicle was slowly disappearing. Not too long after, the entire flying vehicle disappeared from the space vortex. Seeing that, the meltwater ant fell silent. The rag carried it and continued to fly along the wind of the space vortex for a long distance. At a certain point, the remains of another ship appeared in front of them. This was a technological universe ship. From the extent of the cracks on the hull and the huge hole in the hard outer shell, one could tell what kind of attack this ship had suffered. That must be a scary guy. Now, the entire spaceship had been scrapped, and all the living beings on the spaceship had disappeared. Only a few broken limbs and bloodstains were left, telling of the intensity of the battle. The tattered cloth and the wreckage of the spaceship quickly approached. When the two of them brushed past each other, the melting fire ant suddenly slid down from the rag. It turned into a skylark, rode the wind, and flew into the wreckage of the spaceship as fast as it could. Skylark flew into the cabin through the hole and immediately fell to the ground. It turned back into a molten fire ant and crawled into a pipe. The molten fire ants followed the pipe all the way down to the depths of the mechanical ship. It quietly crawled into the bottom of a metal object, then turned into an ant egg and stopped moving. This was the smallest and most inconspicuous specimen that Gu Shan had collected so far. Time flew by. The wreckage of the ship continued to float in the space vortex. No monsters were interested in the wreckage of the spaceship. At a very young age, the monsters had already learned to distinguish which flying vehicles had been eaten and which were perfectly sealed. 1 hour later, 2 hours later, 5 hours later, a voice suddenly came from the empty wreckage of the spaceship. Reporting to the boss, Old Six and I have entered. We've finished our inspection according to our standards. The entire ship has the lowest level of life forms. There might be a few insects or other small creatures. This is unavoidable for any spaceship, but I can guarantee that there are no survivors on this ship. Indeed, the ship's firepower system has been completely destroyed by the monster. The ship's outer shell can't be repaired. The central processing system is intact. The navigation log is intact. Yes, the storage room is also intact. Boss, this ship is a technological one. We probably don't know how to play with it. Drag this thing back? Fine, fine. Then I'll summon my invisible insect swarm. Then you'll have to send someone to fix the hook. But since I put in so much effort this time, when we split the money, you'll have to be on my side, boss. Then I'll get to work. The chatter stopped. The ship once again fell silent. A few moments later, the entire wreckage of the ship suddenly moved. It slowly moved toward a certain direction, but it didn't seem to be moving by itself, nor was there any sound of the engine or power system working. At the same time, the entire wreckage of the ship completely disappeared from the space vortex. No one could see it. No one knew where it went. At this point, the ant egg that entered the ship earlier was still hiding inside a certain mechanical structure. Chapter 740. The Space Vortex. A gigantic, invisible entity was avoiding the densely packed monsters and traveling on the most secluded path. Since this flight path didn't lead to the 7 holy churches, nor did it lead to any of the bustling ports, nor did it lead to the rare superdimensional worlds within the strife zones. On this special day, there were basically no monsters or flying vehicles on this flight path. Boss, everything is normal up ahead. Boss, everything is normal on both sides of the path. A void monster appeared behind us, but it was only passing by. It's currently heading in another direction. A few reports sounded in the spaceship one after another. A few moments later, a hoarse voice asked, "How much longer until we reach Greyhound Black Market?" "We've entered Greyhound Black Market's secret path. We'll arrive in about an hour," someone replied. The hoarse voice then ordered, "From now on, everyone be on high alert. This damn black market is always more dangerous than any other black market." Following this order, the atmosphere inside the ship became tense. The hoarse voice continued, "Furthermore, the 5 trash ships that we've dragged back, go search them and see if there's anything good inside." "Yes, boss." The order was quickly carried out. 5 squads had already been picked out. So as soon as the captain gave the order, they went into the 5 wrecked ships behind them and began to search for anything worth selling. 2 men and a woman also went into the technology-type ship that Gu Shan was on. They began to seriously search for goods. This was a familiar business, so there shouldn't be any issues. Gu Shan also felt that there were no issues. Earlier, he had carefully released his inner sight to check the situation of the ship and the people in front of him. From the looks of it, the wreck of this ship seemed to have been captured by a group of people who specialized in collecting trash from the void. To be able to do such a dangerous and unrewarding job in the void, these people were most likely at the bottom of the strife zones. Their strength was also a good indication of this point. Aside from the hoarse voice of the captain, Gu Qingshan subconsciously didn't release his inner sight to check him. Everyone else was scanned by him. These people were about the same level of strength as Gu Qingshan. After checking, Gu Qingshan felt assured. He had never been afraid of anyone of the same strength. As long as they were careful of the captain, there wouldn't be any problems. At this moment, he was still in the form of an ant egg and continued to hide in the depths of the spaceship wreckage. There were two reasons why he had remained motionless. Firstly, Gu Qingshan had only just entered the strife zones, so she hadn't even grasped the most basic method to cross worlds yet, so she might as well follow them. Secondly, after passing the first karmic tribulation, his cultivation began to skyrocket. In the tribulation realm, he had to face a total of 3 karmic tribulations. After passing the first karmic retribution, Gu Qingshan would reach tribulation middle stage. After passing the second karmic retribution, he would become a tribulation late stage cultivator. After passing the third karmic adversity, he doesn't even need to face the heavens tribulation and will directly enter the virtualized realm. However, the third karmic tribulation was exceptionally dangerous. It could be long or short. Sometimes, even though you felt that you had passed it, it actually wasn't over. For some people, after advancing to virtualized realm, their karmic retribution still had a chance to counterattack. Gu Qingshan had read many books in the suspended world, as well as some of the cultivation notes that Shifu gave him. Now that he thought about it, Qi Yan's death might have been related to his third karmic retribution. Perhaps at the time, Qi Yan's karmic retribution wasn't over yet. He shouldn't have come to Shenwu World as soon as he broke through. Because of that, Gu Qingshan, who had just passed the first karmic retribution, didn't have any plans to do anything. He was prepared to continue hiding. Only when the ship landed would he finish stabilizing his cultivation, then find a chance to sneak off the ship. From then on, he would try to come into contact with the world of the strife zones, learn about the strife zones, as well as the ways to survive. This was Gu Qingshan's plan, but the development of events, or rather, the fate of every person, doesn't always follow the wishes of their hearts. Inside the wreckage of the spaceship, "Dear, come take a look," the girl in charge of searching called out. Of the 2 men, the slightly fatter one walked up and asked, "What is it?" "There shouldn't be any treasures in a ship of this size." "Of course there wouldn't be any treasures. It's just that I can't open this box, so I call for your help." The girl held his hand and said coquettishly. The man looked at the shape and details of the box and quickly understood. He smiled. "I didn't think my luck would be so good. The things inside this box should be quite good. How do you know?" The girl asked. "Because this is a box that's been programmed to self-destruct. If you try to break it without knowing the password, the things inside will be destroyed by a miniature bomb," the man explained. "I'm guessing you'll have a way," the girl smiled and said. "Of course, I'm a devil summoner. I only need to use my unique summoning ability to travel through space and directly summon the things inside," the man pridefully said. The girl looked at him with a look of admiration. "Your summoning ability has always been very rare. From now on, we'll have to depend on you. Don't worry, dear. Once I earn enough money, I'll definitely take you on the highest grade ship to the Holy Church of Life to light your tree of divinity." Saying so, the man crouched down in front of the box. He put his hand on the box and silently activated his unique summoning ability. 7 to 8 faint shadows reached out from his arm, like the tentacles of an octopus, and went inside the box. This was the power of summoning a devil, so it wasn't too hard to use it to travel through the thin layer of the box. The man scowled and focused on checking the things inside the box. Suddenly, his mouth was covered, and a dagger protruded from his heart. The man opened his eyes wide and struggled, only to see the dagger being pulled back. A hand went through his chest, grabbed his heart, and crushed it. The man froze, stopped struggling, and fell to the ground. With the power of a devil summoner, he didn't die right away, but it wouldn't take too long. "Wang Chung, you're finally dead," a male voice came from behind him. The man on the ground struggled to look up, only to see a scene that made his eyes almost pop out of their sockets. His woman was leaning on the chest of another man, taking out a handkerchief to wipe the blood from the dagger. The man lowered his head to look at him on the ground and said with a smile, "Lovers are finally together. Brother Wang, you can rest in peace now." The man he called Wang Chung spat up some blood and spoke with a weak voice. "Boss wouldn't, don't worry. I've already told the first mate and second mate of the ship. I've also given them enough money. They've already covered up for me." Wang Cheng's eyes were bleeding as he stared at the woman without saying anything. The woman pursed her lips. "Old Wang, don't blame me. You're just too useless. I've been with you for so long, yet you can't even come up with enough money to travel to the Holy Church of Life." The man hugged her and smiled. "Brother Wang, don't worry. The money you have, together with our savings, it's more than enough for us to go to the Holy Church of Life. You can rest in peace." Wang Chung looked at the man, then at the woman, and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Even as a summoner who dealt with devils and devils, he could already feel his life rapidly slipping away. He was going to die, but he wasn't willing. At some unknown point, perhaps while he was talking, Wang Chung had already used his blood to draw a hasty pattern on the ground. He used the last of his remaining power to activate his most powerful summoning technique. But the man and woman in front of him only coldly stared at this. The man hugged the woman in his arms tightly, smiled, and shook his head. "Before we came in, I've already asked the second mate to arrange a holy barrier around the ruins of the ship. Your summoning technique won't be able to break through." The woman's expression was a bit complicated as she muttered, "Wang Chung, after so many years, we know you too well." Wang Chung also sensed the situation she was talking about. His summoning technique had been completely sealed inside the ship by a holy power. He was filled with indescribable sorrow and unwillingness. "Even if I die, I'll do everything I can before dying." Wang Chung wiped the tears of blood from his face and roared as he finished reciting the summoning contract. "Regardless of which world's devil or devil you are, as long as you can avenge me, I am willing to offer all of my experience, knowledge, skills, and wealth to you. I am willing to fall into eternal darkness, to suffer endless curses, to turn my soul into the purest soul points, and offer it all to you. Now, please appear in front of me and avenge me." Boom! A huge gray shadow spread out from his body in all directions. The man and woman couldn't help but take a step back. The man shook his head and casually spoke. "It's useless. Your technique won't be able to escape, and no one will know of your death." As he spoke, the gray shadow gathered again, enveloped Wang Cheng's body, then gathered in his palm. This was the sign that the summoning technique had succeeded. Impossible! How could his technique still work? The woman screamed in fear. The man next to her couldn't pretend to be calm anymore, so he leapt forward and swung his dagger with all his might. A cold gleam. Wang Cheng's arm was cut off. The man was still not convinced, so he cut off Wang Cheng's other arm, then both of his legs. "Oh, let's see how you're going to deal with me now." The man breathed heavily. Wang Chung didn't pay any attention to the man, because he was already at the end of his rope, only half a breath left. He tried his best to maintain the last bit of his consciousness to wait for the law of summoning to give him information about the devil or devil he summoned. A few moments later, Wang Chung finally breathed out his last breath. He struggled to speak. "Huang Quan? Devil? King? I beg you." His voice was cut off. His bloodshot eyes were wide open as he died. Fortunately, the summoning technique didn't stop. The gray shadows that he gathered with all of his summoning power turned into a mystical rune and exploded. Boom! Dash. Chapter 741. Gu Qingshan stood in the middle of the dust and silently sighed. "Is that even possible? I was hiding so well, but I still managed to sense the summoning. Of course, summoning is a matter of mutual consent, so if I refuse, the other party's technique would fail. If I followed my original plan, I shouldn't have accepted this summoning." But seeing the man's pitiful state and unwillingness, Gu Qingshan still took his sword and answered the summoning. Within the dust, "Shenu, remember this." He held the Chao Yin's sword and muttered behind him. As soon as the man and woman heard his voice, they both attacked without hesitation. "Don't be ridiculous. Wang Chung was a devil summoner. Although I don't know why his summoning technique was able to succeed, At the very last moment of his life, he sacrificed everything, including his soul, to summon. To pay such a heavy price, the devil he summoned must be extremely powerful. The man and woman both used everything they had to unleash their strongest attacks into the dust. But before they could unleash their techniques, they abruptly stopped. The two of them froze in place, unable to even move. It was as if their souls had left their bodies, unable to control their own bodies. Because Gu Qingshan's sword moved, the Chaoyin sword swung without any killing intent. This strike was casual and light. There wasn't even a sword phantom attached to it, as if a person was trying out their own sword technique without any killing intent. If there was anything special about this strike, it would be its speed. Extremely fast. Unfortunately, this strike was still quite a distance away from the other party. So no matter how fast it was, it couldn't even touch a hair on the other party's body. But it was this strike that caused the man and woman to be unable to move at all. Gu Qingshan swung his sword again. This strike was different. The sword phantom condensed into a line and slashed forward with a sha. Two heads flew into the air. The corpses fell. Before the battle even started, it was already over. Gu Qingshan put his sword away. The Six Paths' great mountain sword appeared from the void of space behind him. Shanna was a bit embarrassed. Gongzi, I didn't understand. Was that Severance just now? Severance was Gu Qingshan's lightning sacred art. Anyone struck by it would have their consciousness separated from their body until 3 seconds later. This was an upgraded divine ability that could cause one to lose control and stiffen up. No living creature would be immune to it. Gu Qingshan smiled and said, "Not only Severance, take a look again." He swung the Chaoyin sword again. This time, he slowed down so that Shanu could clearly see his movements. Shanu seriously read through it and exclaimed, "I understand now. This is a secret art with Severance attached to it. Life Seeker." "Correct," Gu Qingshan said. Secret art. Life Seeker. When you're within 10 feet of the enemy, you can slash through the air. Note, this secret art can only be activated within 10 feet. Note, this secret art can be activated together with other secret arts. The three of them were standing very close to each other. As soon as Gu Qingshan was summoned, she was already within 10 feet of him. At this point, Gu Qingshan had two choices. One was to activate Life Seeker and attack first. The other was to be cautious and use Severance to restrain her so that she couldn't resist, then kill her in one strike. Gu Qingshan chose the second strategy. To be able to set up such a meticulous trap to kill Wang Cheng in one fell swoop. This meant that they had both thought and means. Not to mention, Gu Qingshan had seen the giant encyclopedia of professions with his own eyes back in the Profession Affairs Department. So he understood that in the infinite worlds, there were countless professions with countless methods that couldn't be guarded against. In that split second, he decided to restrain her first. Shanna thought for a bit and asked in surprise, "Gongzi, if that's the case, wouldn't all enemies within 10 feet of me be hit by Severance whenever I use Life Seeker?" Gu Qingshan nodded. "Unless the enemy knows the ability of Life Seeker, or their innate spirit sense is especially outstanding and can sense that they're about to die, they wouldn't be able to avoid the fusion of Severance and Life Seeker," Shanna muttered. "In other words, yes, as soon as an enemy gets within 10 feet of me, as long as I use my sword, they'll be easily restrained by Severance." Gu Qingshan muttered. Shanna froze, then fell silent. She was silently digesting the impact of this secret art. From now on, the way Gongzi and I fight will go through a drastic change. No wonder Gongzi told me to seriously observe this attack. No wonder Xie Dao Ling specifically exchanged this secret art with someone else. Now that I think about it, when Gu Qingshan awakened her lightning thaumaturgy, Xie Dao Ling must have kept it in mind. Even though Xie Dao Ling didn't know that Gu Qingshan's lightning thaumaturgy had evolved twice, from Berserk to Severance, she had always been silently searching for suitable swordsmanship for her disciple. With a lightning-controlling thaumaturgy, this secret art was almost specifically made for Gu Qingshan. This is the true meaning of Soul Seeker, within 10 feet. Shanu silently thought about how she should fight from now on. Gu Qingshan had already put the Chao Yin sword away and crouched down to carefully check Wang Cheng's body. Wang Cheng's bloodshot eyes were still wide open, his expression full of pain and unwillingness. Gu Qingshan silently sighed and shook her head. What a rash fellow! I've already done what you promised me. Following these words, a gray rune suddenly appeared on Wang Cheng's corpse. This rune silently fell into Gu Qingshan's hand. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. First rule of summoning: fair trade. Fair trade refers to Party A, who signed the summoning contract, recognizing the results of Party B's labor, while Party B also recognizes the compensation paid by Party A. This summoning satisfies the above conditions. Now, pay the Huang Quan Devil King's labor, Wang Cheng's life soul rune. This rune contains all of Wang Cheng's experience, knowledge, skills, wealth, as well as the soul points of his soul. You may now absorb this rune. Gu Qingshan lightly tapped the rune. Instantly, countless images appeared in his mind. It felt like a long time, but it was actually very short. In just a single breath's worth of time, Gu Qingshan had grasped a lot of things out of thin air. His soul points had also increased quite a bit. Originally, after obtaining God Institute's Divine Bell and learning God Institute's Miracle Search, he only had 86,000 soul points left. After that, he learned the blade, archery, martial arts, and spirit cooking skills, as well as using mystery of all beings equal. Even though he was only turning into small animals like ants and skylarks, he still needed soul points. Just like that, his soul points dropped to around 70,000. Wang Cheng, the devil summoner, had directly given him 3,000 soul points. Just like that, Gu Qingshan's soul points was replenished again, stabilizing at around 73,000. Furthermore, Gu Qingshan raised his hand. A gray shadow appeared from his hand. This was the devil's contract. After receiving Wang Cheng's gift, Gu Qingshan actually learned the devil summoning technique. Gu Qingshan looked at his soul points, then at the gray shadow in his hand, and couldn't help but exclaim, "No wonder even the evil creatures were willing to answer the summoning. This is basically a windfall that fell from the sky." All of a sudden, a faint noise could be heard from above the wreck of the ship. Someone was coming. Shanu hurriedly asked, "Gongzi, what do we do now?" "HM? HM." Gu Qingshan replied and stopped the devil summoning technique. He crouched down in front of Wang Cheng's corpse and spoke apologetically. "I'm sorry. I'll probably have to take something else from you." Under Shanu's gaze, Gu Qingshan plucked a strand of hair from Wang Cheng's head. Holding the strand of hair, he activated mystery of all beings equal. Chapter 742. Gongzi, are you going to pretend to be him? Shanu smiled and asked. Gu Qingshan looked at Wang Cheng's body and scowled. A lot of people were involved in his assassination. If I just go out like this, it'll cause a lot of problems that'll be troublesome to deal with. Then what should we do? Shanu asked. You're not going to help me think of something? Gu Qingshan asked in return. Gongzi is joking. Of course you're going to think of something so difficult. Then what about you? I'm only a sword. I only need to listen to Gongzi's orders. Huh, why are you sighing, Gongzi? It's nothing. I'm just a bit depressed. The commotion outside the wreckage was getting louder. Gongzi, hurry up and think. Otherwise we'll have no choice but to kill our way out. Seeing how calm and relaxed Shanu was, Gu Qingshan suddenly had an idea. Shanu, activate the mystery and turn into Wang Cha? What about Gongzi? I'll still pretend to be me. Shanu thought for a bit and said, I understand. Gongzi wants to use your identity as a member of the Justice Iron Fist Club to pretend to be protecting Wang Chung. That's not it. Gu Qingshan smiled. Right now, Bali and Miao are guarding my world. I can't bring them here, but the Justice Iron Fist Club's reputation is more than enough to deal with such a small matter. Shanu smiled and said. Gu Qingshan took out the black Shun Wei general armor, donned it, and put on the golden mask. His face was hidden behind a mask. It was now that he spoke. Shanu, sometimes we can rely on others, but most of the time, you'll find that the only person you can rely on is yourself. Why? Bali has a lot of enemies. Before his leg recovers, he can't even go out. Not to mention, I'm currently in an unknown environment and my strength is very low. His enemies must be very strong. If I were to hold up the club sign and jump out at this time, they'll use me as a substitute to vent their hatred and kill me without anyone noticing. So, don't always expect a great reputation to play a good role, because you're likely to be involved in a greater whirlpool and danger. I've been enlightened, young master. What should we do now? Shanna was truly confused. Gu Qingshan replied, if Wang Cheng is the devil summoner, then I am the devil who took his soul. A few minutes later, outside the spaceship wreckage, the teams responsible for the search had all returned. At the intersection leading to the main spaceship, 5 burly warriors were shouting loudly, asking everyone to hand over their loot honestly. The leader's entire body was green, and his entire person was like a rock. He was the second mate of the spaceship. He was extremely powerful and loyal to the captain. So after the previous second mate was eaten by the void monster, it was his turn to take this position. At this moment, he was a little annoyed as he said to the people beside him, go and see why the people from debris number 2 haven't come out yet. Brother Yin, it's about that. His subordinate whispered to him. Brother Yin impatiently replied, of course I know the reason, but we can't delay it for too long. The boss doesn't care about the life of an ant, but if our efficiency is too low and we keep him waiting, he'll be furious. How about this? You go and help Zhang. Yes, the subordinate replied with a flash of killing intent in his eyes. He called over 2 of his subordinates and was about to head towards the debris of the second spaceship. At the same time, bam! With a loud noise, the door to the debris of the second spaceship was kicked open. Wang Cheng came out with a man wearing black armor and a golden mask. Wang Cheng, someone exclaimed. Ah, it's me. Why do you all look so surprised? Wang Cheng casually asked. Without waiting for his subordinate to say anything, the second mate pushed the people in front of him aside and quickly walked forward. Wang Cheng, where are your wife and Zhang Yi? He asked in a low voice. Dead. Wang Cheng's voice carried a bit of coldness. The second mate was a bit surprised, but he quickly realized, I don't know how much Wang Cheng knows about this. If Wang Cheng knows everything from Zhang Yi, he'll definitely go find the captain. In other words, I have to kill Wang Cheng right away. I can't let the captain know that these people were bribed by Zhang Yi to secretly harm his subordinate. The second mate coldly smirked and gestured. Dead? According to the rules of this ship, killing your own people is punishable by death. Go, kill him. Receiving his order, everyone charged at Wang Cheng. Through the second mate's hand signals, they understood the situation. The second mate wants Wang Cheng dead. At this point, there's no need to think too much about who to side with. The second mate's subordinates, as well as the search party members, all acted at once, wanting to take Wang Cheng's life in one strike. The crowd came from all directions. They surrounded Wang Cheng, attacking him from all angles without any blind spots. Wang Cheng coldly smirked but didn't move. The man in black armor next to him drew his sword. The sword circled around Wang Cheng, drawing a cold arc in the air. A single thought flashed through everyone's mind. What is he doing? At the very next moment, their weapons fell to the ground. The incantation stopped. The spell dissipated. Their fists stopped. All of their attacks stopped midway. Everyone found themselves losing control of their bodies, frozen on the spot, unable to move. The second mate had been through a lot of battles, so he had already grown larger, turning into a monster made entirely of rock. Ki! The Chaoyin sword struck him from afar. Lightning flashed. Gu Qingshan exclaimed in surprise. The other party was able to turn into rock in the blink of an eye. Rock itself doesn't fear lightning, not to mention the fact that it's no longer a living being. It managed to block the combined attack of Severance and Life Seeker. How rare. But the others didn't. They all fell to the ground, unconscious. Gu Qingshan didn't kill them. He simply knocked them unconscious one by one. As for the second mate, Gu Qingshan smiled and commented, "This form is quite interesting, truly eye-opening." He raised his sword. The second strike wasn't so simple. All of a sudden, a hoarse shout resounded. "Stop! Oh, An intense gust of wind formed a wall that separated Gu Shan from the others. A man wearing a captain's hat appeared in front of Gu Shan. He had greasy, slick-back hair, a hooked nose, and a pair of narrow eyes staring straight at Gu Shan. Gu Shan recognized this person. Through Wang Cheng's memories, he clearly knew that this man was the captain of the ship, as well as the one everyone was talking about as boss. The captain's expression was grim as he looked at the unconscious people on the ground and shouted in a low voice, "Wang Cheng, what's going on here?" Wang Cheng coldly replied, "If someone wants to kill me, of course I have to fight back." The captain carefully looked around. Seeing that none of the people on the ground were injured, he slowly calmed down. He pointed at Gu Shan and asked, "And who is this guy?" "Boss, I'm a devil summoner, so of course he's a devil that I summoned," Wang Cheng replied. The captain looked behind him. Among the dozens of subordinates behind him, one of them silently came up and whispered into the captain's ear, "He really is a devil, and a devil king at that." The second mate took that chance to turn back in a human form and loudly declared, "Boss, Wang Cheng summoned a devil, killed his wife and Zhang Yi. He violated the ship's rules." "Boss, he did violate your rules, but refused to admit his crimes. So I want everyone to take him down." While explaining, the second mate glared at Wang Cheng. And Gu Shan, damn it, where did Wang Cheng find such a demon? He was actually so powerful. He clearly couldn't have done that. The captain's presence changed. "Wang Cheng, I've already set the rules. You can't kill your own people, yet you dare to violate my rules," he spoke in a low voice. Wang Cheng suddenly laughed and said, "Boss, if they want to kill me, I can't even fight back." The captain froze. He suddenly realized that the situation this time wasn't as simple as it seemed. Everyone on the ship was watching this. If this wasn't handled well, it might cause a huge commotion. "Damn you, Wang Cheng," the captain cursed. "Regardless of whether it's you or anyone else, if they dare to try and deceive me, I guarantee they'll suffer a terrible fate." He reached into his chest pocket and took out a small black bell. "Wang Cheng, tell me what happened." "I'm warning you, don't lie. Otherwise the death bell will ring, and I swear I'll deal with you," the captain said. "Why not?" Wang Cheng casually replied. "That bitch Bai Yu secretly colluded with Zhang Yi and bribed many people to cover for them, wanting to take advantage of this surge to get rid of her man. That's the truth." The captain glanced at the black bell in his hand. It didn't ring. The captain slowly calmed down. "So that's what happened. Wang Cheng only killed them out of self-defense." The captain mused. "If it was self-defense, then this isn't too bad." "Very well. If it's a misunderstanding, then let's end this here," the captain said. Who would have thought? The devil next to Wang Cheng suddenly let out a short and sharp laugh. This laughter was so horrifying that it made everyone present feel somewhat uncomfortable. It was now that everyone remembered that Wang Cheng had a powerful summoning devil standing next to him. This devil knocked out a few dozen people at once. If it weren't for Wang Cheng stopping them, they would have already died. Seems like this was Wang Cheng's trump card. How laughable that by you and Zhang. He didn't even know the other party's trump card and dared to kill. Wang Cheng glanced at the devil next to him, then at the captain. "Captain, my devil has something to tell you," Wang Cheng said. "What is it?" the captain solemnly asked. Chapter 743. The captain turned to Gu Shan. This Devil King-class evil creature was wearing a full suit of black armor. Black threads that resembled mist and flames were emanating from the armor, shooting straight into the void of space. This evil creature was also wearing a golden mask that was engraved with numerous mystical runes that covered its face. He could sense the evil creature's power. After the test just now, this evil creature had adjusted itself to its peak state. Its killing intent was becoming more and more concentrated. Its sharp sword chi was ready to strike at any moment. This was an extremely dangerous creature. What's even more troublesome was that the evil creature was only brought here by the law of summoning. The evil creature could dispel the law and return to its own world at any moment. If I anger this evil creature, it could simply ignore Wang Cheng's reward, kill everyone here, then leave. That won't do. The captain squinted his eyes, almost like he was smiling. He cleared his throat and said, "The second mate wouldn't purposely target anyone. I trust him on that." Everyone was in an uproar. What everyone found strange wasn't the captain speaking up for the second mate, but rather the captain explaining himself to the evil creature. From a certain point of view, this could be considered a concession. But the evil creature didn't appreciate it at all and continued. "But Wang Chung was tested. Why can't the second mate be tested as well?" The captain was a bit shaken. No one on this ship had ever dared to challenge his authority. The captain's gaze moved down, silently observing Gu Qing-shan's hand. Gu Qing-shan's hand, that was covered in black armor, was placed on her sword. Faint arcs of blue and white electricity were flickering on the blade. An evil creature that wields the elements and can use swords. Such an evil creature has never been seen before. It defeated a group of people with a single strike. The captain scowled unnoticeably. "I can clearly sense that this evil creature isn't very strong. But why am I feeling so tense? Should I act or not? This will lead to two completely different situations." The captain took a deep breath and prepared to make his final decision. He spoke. "You evil creature, Captain." The second mate cut off the captain. He suddenly walked up and took the initiative to say to the small black bell, "I want to prove in front of everyone that as the second mate of the ship, I have never accepted any benefits, nor have I ever wanted to harm or kill anyone on our side." As soon as he finished, the small black bell remained silent. It didn't ring. The onlookers cheered. The second mate was telling the truth. He immediately regained everyone's trust. The captain came back to his senses and looked at Gu Qing-shan, then at Wang Chung. "See, I told you that no one on this ship would dare to disobey my rules. Even if you die in their hands, I will definitely avenge you once I find out what happened." When he spoke, he also spoke to the little black bell. The little black bell still did not ring. The crowd cheered again. After the second mate and the captain passed the death knell test, the atmosphere changed. Everyone's faces were no longer tense, and they all revealed smiles. Yes, the captain had always been trusted by everyone. The captain would definitely uphold the rules of the entire ship. The second mate was also loyal and would not do anything against his own people. Only this kind of ship was worth staying on. Gu Qing-shan stood still, staring at the little black clock, lost in thought. According to Wang Cheng's memories, this little black bell came from the Holy Church of Death, a commonly used saint artifact of death in the strife zones, also known as the Death God's Knell. Whenever someone spoke to the Death God's Knell, the little bell would be able to discern the sincerity of the other party's words and make a judgment. For the Holy Church of Death, they often gave this knell to various organizations to use. Firstly, this saint artifact could be used to expand the Holy Church of Death's influence. Secondly, whenever someone used this little black bell, they would have to pay a hefty fee to the Holy Church of Death. Thirdly, whenever the little black bell was activated, it would record everything that happened on the spot and provide feedback to the Holy Church of Death, allowing members of the church to obtain relevant information. Although many organizations knew that this was a clever trick of the Holy Church of Death, after careful consideration, they were still willing to accept this Death God's Knell. Because with this saint artifact, no one in their organization could lie. This was the power of supreme deterrence. As an organization, they desired the stability of their organization more than anything else. For countless years, no one had ever been able to deceive the Death God's Knell. So when the captain and the second mate passed the test, everyone could finally be at ease. Wang Chung paused for a bit and smiled. "Thank you, Captain. I can finally be at ease," Wang Chung said. The captain cursed. "You damn brat. Do you know how much money I have to pay to the Holy Church of Death every time I use this bell?" Wang Chung snickered. At this point, a few people came out from the wreck of the second ship and whispered a few words into the captain's ear. The wrinkles on the captain's face instantly smoothed out. He declared, "By Yu and Zhang, he betrayed me and tried to harm their own people, so I'm going to confiscate their personal assets. Once we're done with this business, I'll split their assets among everyone." Everyone cheered. Not only did the captain protect every member of the crew, he was also so generous. Wang Chung, you're the victim. You'll get the biggest share. The captain winked at Wang Chung. Wang Chung smiled and replied, "Thank you, Captain." The captain shrugged and gently said, "Now that everything has been dealt with, you can dispel the summoning and let that damned fiend go." Wang Chung paused. She quickly exchanged opinions with Gu Qing Shan. "Captain, there's actually something I want to report to you in private," Wang Chung said. The captain frowned. He looked at Gu Qing Shan, then at Wang Chung. The fiend still hadn't left. What exactly is Wang Chung trying to do? After a bit of hesitation, the captain spoke. "Second mate, you'll be responsible for the rest of the work here. Come, Wang Chung, follow me to the captain's room." A few moments later, inside the captain's room, Wang Chung had already made a secret report and explained everything clearly. The captain sat there and silently listened. His face was as gloomy as water. As the captain, someone dared to deceive him. His expression was a perfect representation of the rage in his heart. "So you're saying it was the first mate who colluded with by you and Zhang Yi to do this?" he asked. "That's right," Wang Qing nodded. "Where's the second mate?" "Zhang Yi only told me about the first mate before he was killed by the impulsive fiend. I don't know if there's anyone else, but the first mate was definitely involved." The captain looked at the fiend. "Why did you target the second mate?" "Smokescreen. We usually like to use this kind of trick to confuse our enemies," the fiend laughed. "You fiend," Wang Chung hurriedly said. "Captain, sir, I'll pay for your use of the death god's knell." Hearing that, the captain's expression became a bit better. He looked at the black-armored fiend and quickly asked Wang Chung, "So, the reason why you haven't dismissed the summoned fiends is because of the first mate?" "That's right." "Very well, I understand. If the first mate was the one behind this, he has violated my rules. I will uphold justice." He pressed a button on the table and said, "Call the first mate here." The two of them only waited for a few moments. The first mate arrived. On this ship, the first mate's strength was second only to the captain. Normally, the captain didn't have to do anything specific, while the first mate was the one who actually commanded and ruled the ship. The captain's power was too mysterious. No one knew the captain's true strength, but everyone knew how cruel and powerful the first mate was. Does the captain want to deal with the first mate right now? Or is the captain calling the first mate here to deal with me? Wang Chung recalled the past, then tried to analyze the current situation and couldn't help but feel anxious. The black-armored fiend silently stood behind him and didn't react at all. "Captain, sir, what business do you have with me?" the first mate respectfully asked. The captain pointed at the bookshelf on the wall and said, "Take down the 17th book from the third row and give it to Wang Chung. This is my gift to him." "Yes," the first mate replied. He turned around and looked up at the bookshelf. The third row, the 17th book. The first mate looked up. The captain looked at the first mate's back. He silently raised his hand, spread his fingers, and made a twisting motion towards the first mate from afar. Crack! The first mate's neck was directly broken. The captain swung his arm and pulled at the air. Blood erupted. The first mate's head was twisted off. His corpse fell to the ground with a dull thud. Chapter 744. The captain pressed the table again and ordered, "The first mate violated my rules and was killed by me. 2 men, sew his head back on and hang his body on the ship for everyone to see." 2 of his subordinates quickly came in. They bowed to the captain. Then one of them carried the first mate's head while the other dragged the first mate's body and quickly left. The captain smiled at Wang Chung. "How was it?" "Thank you, Captain, for upholding justice for me. Now you're assured?" "Yes," Wang Chung replied with sincerity. Then you may leave. Keep in mind, no one can break my rules." "Understood, Captain, sir." Wang Chung and the evil creature then left. The captain silently stared at their backs. "Hey, brat," he suddenly called out. "Captain, dismiss your evil creature. Otherwise my crew will panic." Wang Chung didn't say anything, but his evil creature spoke up. "I will send him to his room. Only then will the summoning contract be considered complete." Listening carefully, the captain's eyebrows loosened. He nodded. "Very well. You should leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll affect my people. Wang Chung is safe. I will naturally leave, the evil creature said. Bam! The door was closed. They had left. The captain silently sat there for a while. His fists were unconsciously clenched tight, as if killing the first mate wasn't enough to quell his anger. Bastard! The captain muttered in a low voice. He suddenly took out a small box from under the table, searched inside for a while, then took out a coin. This was a unique coin with a smooth surface and nothing on it. The captain blew on the coin, listened to the buzzing sound coming from the edge of the coin, then called out, "Your Excellency, sorceress, I summon you." Following his voice, a woman's face appeared on the coin. "What is it?" the woman asked. "Your Excellency, sorceress, I want you to perform a divination for me. You know about my fees." "Of course. Very well. Wait a moment. I'll prepare the ritual." The woman on the coin disappeared without a trace. A few moments later, the sorceress' voice came again. "Tell me what you want to know," the captain said. "This is a very strange thing. I clearly feel that the enemy's strength is much weaker than mine, but my intuition tells me not to fight him." "Oh, looks like it's a special opponent." There was a hint of excitement in the witch's voice. As someone who explored the essence of all mysteries, she was interested in anything that didn't make sense. The captain continued, "What I want to know now is if we were to fight, would I be able to defeat the Ghost King summoned by Wang Chung?" Just a moment. The other side was silent for a while. Just as the captain was getting more and more perturbed, the witch's voice rang out again. "Now flip the coin. And then, if the coin falls and the last side facing up is your head, then it proves that you can win. What if the devil's head is facing up? You will die. Only these two situations? You do it first. I'll observe from the side," the witch said. The captain gritted his teeth and picked up the coin. The face of the witch on the coin instantly disappeared, and the entire coin became smooth again. The captain flicked his finger. The coin was tossed high into the air, and it kept rolling in the air. Key! It landed on the table and bounced a few times. It stood up. The coin stood still on the table without falling down to any side. The captain opened his eyes wide, speechless. "Ah-ha-ha!" The witch couldn't hold back her laughter. "What's going on?" The captain couldn't help but ask. "How interesting. That Ghost King is far weaker than you are. But if the two of you were to fight, it would be an evenly matched situation," the witch continued to explain with a smile. "All right, such a rare divination result will bring me luck from the mystery, so I won't take the money. I look forward to your next visit." After saying so, her voice disappeared from the room. She had left. The only person left in the room was the captain, blankly sitting there. A few moments of silence. He suddenly roared, "Damn bastard!" His fist heavily slammed on the table. Everything on the table bounced up and then fell on the table and the floor in a messy manner. But the coin still stood there, without moving a single bit. "No, I won't allow it," the captain angrily muttered to himself. He stood up, walked to the wall, and put his hand on it. Suddenly, his expression became very strange. "What the hell? Did that fiend notice something?" "No, I need to prepare myself," he muttered to himself, and quickly left the room. The door was slammed shut. The room became completely silent. A few moments later, suddenly, the smooth coin on the table slowly fell down in a certain direction. On the other side, Gu Qingshan and Shanu once again entered the second ship ruin. "Gongzi, why did we come here?" Shanu asked. "Because no one outside knows that when by you and Zhang he killed someone here, they had already revealed what happened to the first mate and second mate." Gu Qingshan continued. "That's laughable. The captain even tried to use the death god's funeral bell to prove the truth." Shanu carefully thought about it. "That's strange. The ones who helped by you frame Wang Chung were the first mate and the second mate, but the death god's funeral bell didn't ring. Could it be that there's something wrong with the bell?" "No, the one with the problem is the second mate," Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu was a bit surprised and asked, "How did Gongzi know that?" Gu Qingshan asked in return, "Do you still remember what he said to the death god's funeral bell?" Shanu carefully recalled and repeated. He said, "I want to prove in front of everyone that as the second mate of the ship, I've never accepted any benefits or tried to frame or kill anyone on our side. Did you find out? Gu Qing Shan asked. I didn't, Shanu replied. Gu Qing Shan helplessly replied. He only said that the second mate didn't do those things, but carefully avoided saying how he addressed himself. Shanu realized and said, That's right, he only said that the second mate didn't do those things, but didn't say that he didn't do them himself. So he definitely isn't the second mate, Gu Qing Shan muttered. Then who exactly is he? I don't know yet, but I'm guessing he's not a person. Why not? Because he stopped my life seeker, Severance. Although according to the law of nature, the earth element can counter the lightning element. When my sword struck his body, I felt an indescribable strange sensation. Gu Qing Shan sighed. The current situation is too strange. Only this section of a ship has been proven to be safe and hidden. That's why we're changing identities here, saying so. Gu Qing Shan took off the Shenwei armor. Gongzi, it's been a long time since I've seen you, this cautious Shan praised. There are countless professions and living beings in the strife zones, as well as countless strange and unusual void monsters. In such a chaotic and unpredictable world, if we aren't careful, we won't be able to go far, Gu Qing Shan sighed. Recalling something, Shanu scowled. That's right, Gongzi still has 2 karmic adversity to go through. You have to be careful, Gu Qing Shan nodded. He couldn't afford to be careless about karmic adversity. He activated Mystery of All Beings Equal and slowly turned into Wang Cheng's appearance. In the ruins of the airship, 2 identical Wang Cheng were staring at each other. Gongzi, this means I don't have to pretend to be Wang Cheng anymore? What the Wang Cheng asked. I have a feeling that there might be some unexpected changes after this, so from now on, it's my turn, the other Wang Cheng replied. That's great. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.